an ideal meritocracy, naturally the people who deserve to be the best will become and rise to the best.
It just can't be up to free enterprise. Once it becomes business, the only thing that matters is flipping the dollar, not the kids that you're trying to change and the kids you're trying to educate. It's more of a transactional process rather than a transformative process.
A lot of the bureaucracies are kind of there and they're kind of useless. I think there are bureaucracies that are kind of sitting around making rules that are not necessarily necessary in a way.
And that are also corrupt in a sense.
Yeah.
I get it. This would open up the economy, become a huge sector. I just don't see it benefiting enough to have it being privatized. Once you're observing people, you kind of think a lot of people are, perfect in a sense. But really, as you start to peel some layers back, you're like, wow, this person's as effed up as I am, not screwed up, but as in there's faults, right? Like no one's perfect. And I think we kind of get that perceived notion when we come to a new place, we don't really know people, but then once we start to understand people, you start to realize that, we're all humans in a sense. We're all not perfect. Or if you got like an automated one and it just like set up on itself.
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean an automated one?
Like we wouldn't have to touch it. Like maybe it was like a little piece of decoration and went
That'd be
down
sick.
when we started.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to upgrade the studio, so I'm gonna keep copying as many things as I can. Like this is latest upgrade here. I'm thinking that I need to change the background of your side as well.
Okay. Possibly put in another flag or
possibly, yeah. I was just debating like what kind of flag should I put. Like I was thinking like music artists that are cool, or maybe like a Michigan logo. Like, what do you think? Got thoughts?
I would almost like the same flag we have right behind you, but almost if you could put something in the background, like a Michigan emblem or something else.
Oh, I see. So like something similar though.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be weird having Brew Podcast twice on both sides. Though.
Yeah.
So, like,
maybe I don't know. I think if the flag could possibly be like collaborative, maybe with people that have already, but then it would almost be like a quilt, you like stitch things
though.
on it, or
That'd be sick, yeah.
but kind of like everyone you've had, and it's like, or you could have people sign it. People sign the flag.
Yeah.
So maybe
what kind of material would I need for that?
Or it could be the guest, or the guest in the background. Or,
I like that, dude.
Or if you have a name for a guest, and then everyone who's from now on could sign it.
I like
who's
that.
been a part of it.
I'll have to get
I think that would be
when
sweet.
I get the flag, I'll do another episode because like that's a great idea, dude.
Yeah.
So would I have like a similar kind of flag as this? Like, would you want? Like, what color would you think would be good for that?
I think white would probably.
Straight white.
I think
have like
white.
what kind of material would I need? Like I can't use a marker on that, so that would not work.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe more of a sort of that's transparent. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe a canvas that's not as. I don't know. There's definitely something on.
I'll do some research. That's a brilliant idea though, because I think maybe when I'll build a podcast studio in my next home next year.
Okay.
Where I'm gonna be living. So that one I'll be in for like 3 years. So
yeah,
I'll make something proper there. Like that'll be permanently staying there because this space we borrow with other people. But I could have like a wall that's completely like a chalkboard or something.
Yeah,
and
you could do
get
that
creative
as well.
with it. Yeah, and have people.
I think it'd be really cool to have a flag that everyone was a part of. Sign,
That'd be sick.
Yeah,
that's like iconic in a way.
Yeah. And it's kind of like showing a new age as well with having. From now on, having people signing it.
That's cool, dude. Yeah, I think one of the things I like most about the podcast is like the historical aspect of it. That when I look back, it's like a time capsule.
Exactly.
I walk through this journey through life, and I meet people on the way.
Yeah.
I preserve hours long worth of conversations with them, and then I move on.
And with the times too, right?
Yeah.
Because what's relevant right now in today's society could be completely out the window compared to 10 years or even a year,
Yeah.
Like what we talk about today could be could not even be in hindsight anymore,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I sometimes like we can look back at history and look at it in an objective way that this is the event that happened in 2024. Oh, people talking about the election. In 2020, people talking about COVID, and they just throw these words out there, and we can read about them and the facts. But I think it's different when you can understand like the way people were thinking back then, because we can look at an objective factor. Like, this is what happened, but to preserve like an authentic conversation from that era, I think is very different. I think you learn a lot more about what was actually happening back then.
Yeah, and to a certain extent too, right? Like there is factual scientific data, but it really doesn't matter unless how the public interprets it, right? Because the public and the real people are the ones that are actually making the daily decisions about, yes, COVID is around, but do I really need to wear a mask? COVID's around, but am I still going to interact with my friends or have my normal life? And so people will hear things that are true things, but will they act within those guidelines? I think that's important too, to kind of see the interpretation within real life events and concepts and things that are in our current lives, but how are the people, talking about it, thinking about it, acting within it? So, and that's way more important than just the news itself. It's how the people within our lives are taking that news and applying it to their life.
Another problem is the news is often highly inaccurate.
Exaggerated.
To how bad was it really? Was it worse than they made it seem? Was it not as bad?
Is it fear mongering?
Exactly. That's a big problem as well.
Yeah.
Everyone talking about this. I mean, there are definitely huge problems in the world today. Don't get me wrong. And I do think that the news is important so that people, I think for the first time in history, have such a good awareness about what's happening. But I think when you look at specific news articles, to what extent is that actually true, and who are the actors behind that? Because I've seen so many articles that are trying to spread a certain narrative, but they're funded by people from these companies like we were talking about the other day in South Korea that have a very clear agenda they're trying to push to make more profit. And I think because of that, the entire narrative or beliefs of a nation can be altered, which is kind of scary.
I think that sometimes as us humans, we like to look at brands and certain entities, and that could be any entity from government to corporate, that we think they're their own identity and that their own genuine self. But that is not the case at all, in my opinion. I think that because there's so many different interests going on, right? Like, and these entities are playing with billions to trillions of dollars, and they're not just creating that revenue themselves. There's special interests that go with anything. So that's kind of what plays a string. One example that comes to my mind is that, specifically like the local broadcast across the news, specifically Fox's, they have the same exact introduction that they do across.
Are you talking about Fox News?
Yes, okay. But like I'm talking about local. Like your
local Fox News.
Yeah, like back home, if I can think of my Fox, I can think of my CBS one. It's like WMBT. But that one's different. But for the Fox one, they have the same introduction, like their mission statements and whatnot. I mean, it's not really a mission statement, but introduction, like before they do the show, it's the same exact one in California, in Michigan, where you're from, across, like it's the same exact phrase that's trying to show that they're being personable to the audience and reporting the stuff that they're reporting for their communities. Yet they're being told to say this thing, So I think a lot of times we trust and kind of think that these certain entities within our life, with that being school, with that being government, with that being where we work, we really think that they're honest and true, but there's so many different special interests that are tied, such as wanting to have to mandate the introduction to news that everyone is waking up to and seeing. So I just think that's something that's interesting, right? Like, people should be hearing different things from what they are in Michigan to Pennsylvania. There's different needs and different desires that they want to hear and talk about, not the same introduction and phrase throughout the entire nation. So that's one example that comes to my mind.
Even beyond the introduction and the same catchphrase, the news articles, I think the bigger thing is that they're all the polarization of each news article, I think. But I think people are waking up to that. I think people, when they watch the news now, they know. I think a lot of people more now know that, this news article is left wing, this news article is right wing, and they kind of know that going in. So I think they're kind of above it because, like, I know that this is probably more left wing, this is more right wing. But then at the same time, it's probably still influencing their beliefs to a degree. Like, if you believe every single thing you're hearing, that's a little bit worrisome because at least I try my best to be critical about what I hear. Like, whenever I like podcasts as the best form because it's harder to do that when everything is optimized to make you believe something. I think that's how these news articles are designed. The way they're presenting their argument, the way they're presenting the case, and the way they're representing the news to you. They're going to frame it in this way and speak in this way and speak in that tone. And podcasts can do that too, but from what I've seen, most of the even political podcasts that I watch, even if they're one-sided, sometimes they'll openly say that we're interviewing a candidate who's one-sided. But I feel like I'm less inclined to just blindly believe everything because I'm listening to a human talk. And whenever you hear a human talk, you can identify what seems correct, identify what seems incorrect because of how we evolved as humans. And we're better at doing that when there's a person that we're just listening to, which is, I think that's why, like, I've listened to some political podcasts recently, and I find it much easier to just make opinions and beliefs based off of that. Because one example is one podcast I recently watched. I really like the guy that was being interviewed. He's a potential candidate for the 2028 election.
Okay.
And
what was his name?
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Okay, yeah. And he was in the VP running for
Trump.
Yeah.
He ran against Trump this year, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I like the guy. I think he's a cool guy. And then when I think about the specific policies I talked about, I can agree with some of it. I can disagree with some of it. I think he had a lot of good points. I'd say like 60% of it I can agree with, but 40% of it I was questioning a little bit. Like, how much of that is actually true? And I think that should be more of an approach people should take instead of just blindly believing every single thing they hear.
100%. Yeah. And I agree. And to kind of hit back on the politics part, I think it's important that people recognize that as well. I feel that there's a lot of people that sort of, deem one of the candidates or just any candidate almost as a godlike figure. Like, I believe in everything that they say, just as you said, right? But really what it comes down to is that politics are really more about the idea of supporting certain concepts or ideas. And I think a lot of people try to attach themselves to candidates or to political figures that just based off of their own physical characteristics and not necessarily what they stand for. And that goes both sides. That goes with Kamala and Trump in the current state. Also, to hit back on you're talking about podcasts being the most for the best way for you to interpret things. I think that's a really big reason why Trump won in this election, because he had a combined. I just watched a YouTube video on it. I forgot I'll tell you the YouTube channel later when I remember. But they basically discussed. They went through all the numbers of his podcast, like how many streams he had. It was like 90.
I could probably pull up the statistics.
I think it was 90 million streams is what he generated off of. I think a couple dozen different podcasts, but then also kind of like YouTube or streaming events such as with Aiden Ross, and I believe did he have one with Kai Cenat?
I don't know,
but he became, I think he had around 90 million streams just off of doing a couple dozen.
That's a lot. I believe
that's a lot.
We had 50 million views on Joe Rogan itself, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and that was the one that headline. I think that was around 15 to 20. But the Joe Rogan. And we're not even counting creators that react to it or creators that make clips off of it.
Clips
that's
the clips is like
industry in itself, right?
How many think streams you got off of clips? Because that's a lot,
dude.
Everyone's seen a clip.
There are very wealthy people in this world that don't make a lick of entertainment. They just clip. And you have, and it's like Joe Rogan's best moments, and it has 5 million subscribers.
More than that.
Yeah. And those guys are profiting crazy without making anything.
60-second clips.
Exactly.
Oh my god, it's insane.
And then you can put that over the different platforms as well, Facebook.
And there's
TikTok,
so many people
Twitter.
on this like short form scroll problem. There's also consuming so much content at once. Like
consuming
in an hour, it's there you go.
Yeah.
Money making machine right there. But 60 seconds. Even if you round up to 60 seconds per video, that's like what 60 in an hour.
Yeah.
Clips and people are on that shit.
Honest, someone isn't staying on a TikTok
at the minimum.
video for 6. I bet that would be really interesting to look up. What's the average time that someone stays on one TikTok? I bet you it's. Let's think the over under here.
Let's guess.
I'm gonna go 4.3.
Wow.
Because here you gotta think about all the times that people look at something and they're immediately not interested.
That's true.
And that's, I feel like, a majority of the time is when people aren't interested. But then maybe you stay on a video that's 30 seconds long here or there. Final answer. I'm gonna go 5. Let's go 5.3.
I was gonna go something close to that.
Yeah.
Okay. How about I go over, you go under? I'll go over 5.3.
Okay.
I think it's over.
I think it's under. I think it's about.
You think it's under?
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's over. Let's see. So,
But I could also, I feel like it's around there. It's got to be about 5 seconds.
Average view duration per video on TikTok?
Yeah, let's go TikTok.
Okay. According to available data, the average watch time per TikTok video is around 50 to 60% of the video length, meaning users typically watch at least half of a video on average, with the ideal range considered to be between 21 and 34 seconds for most engaging content.
Okay.
Yeah, but then again, we don't know how
like
much of it's true.
I feel like
it's under that.
You'd have to collect your own evidence.
It's hard
I'm surprised
yeah.
I mean, if you probably dig deeper, you could probably find someone who's.
How about we look at my channel? How about we look at my channel? I can get the exact statistics of people on my shorts, how much they watch. Yeah, give me a second here.
Okay.
I gotta find this. But yeah, this is really interesting to me. I used to be on the shorts a lot, like in middle school. Let's see. We'll go to content, shorts.
Yeah, I haven't had TikTok since sophomore year of high school.
I think same.
And it's life changing in my opinion.
It is.
And
man.
I've seen my friends change that have downloaded and re-downloaded TikTok. You know, you're not able to talk to them as long. You know, they're consumed into nothingness. And don't get me wrong, like with the short form of media that's on every platform, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and it goes on. YouTube is definitely the one that I could find myself here and there falling into, but it
YouTube
also,
Shorts or YouTube videos?
YouTube Shorts.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I think it's just its connection to YouTube, and YouTube being the platform of what it is, and YouTube's honestly one of the most frequent tools I use for anything. Like if I need to know anything that's substantial or has multiple steps or is complex, like you can't even look it up, YouTube or Reddit, of course. Good old friend Reddit.
Yeah, dude, YouTube, bro. I'm a big fan of YouTube. I mean, dude, isn't it insane that we have access to so much content out there?
So much.
Consume. And YouTube, I think, is good for you because they're longer form videos. You're learning a lot from watching that kind of video. Like if I'm watching a full 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast or Lex Fridman podcast, I'm learning a lot from that. And sometimes I listen to it, but I think visually seeing it, I really enjoy that part of it as well. And especially with tutorial kind of videos, there's so much you can learn from those videos. And I do agree that I think the short form content is probably one of the worst addictions out there. Like we can talk 100%. About like all the terrible things people do with their time these days, but that's up there, man, because the time just flies, bro. And man, the sad thing is that I think we're at a school like Michigan where I think you need a degree of discipline and work ethic to get in here. So I see it less here. I think I see a lot more healthy, well-rounded people here.
100%.
But if you take the vast majority of our population, you'll find them sleeping in till like 11:30. The first thing they do when they get up is like take their phone up and just scroll, and then it's like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Oh, I gotta go eat something now. And that's the life of most people. And it's designed to be so addicting, and the short form content style, like it's just like this and this and this, and just getting your brain fried with all this content. It's insane, dude.
And now personally, I can't retain any of that information, which is something that I noticed and was the reason why I deleted it sophomore year of high school, because I was like, wow, I can't think of a single TikTok that I just saw in the past 30 minutes that has, you know, like it piques your interest and you see things that, you know, can apply to your own life, but yet it's not anything of relevance that's going to your RAM.
And it's not really designed to be of anything of relevance.
No, it
like
isn't.
If I want to share some knowledge with someone, I'm going to make like a 3-hour podcast instead of a 60-second clip. I can't teach you a lot in a 60-second clip.
No, you can't.
You know? But I didn't realize how bad it was till recently because I started making them myself too. And I remember when I was making them, my shorts weren't doing that well. And then I got like someone on my team to work for me and design those shorts. And the way he's thinking about how to design a short is opening my eyes to like how these shorts are actually designed, because he uses the apps and he understands them better than me.
Because it's manipulation.
He's like, right? Oh no, you can't clip that clip about you saying the motivational thing. You have to clip this thing about the time you mentioned Mike Tyson. That part that's gonna get a lot of views. Yeah. And then you got to like put this specific music there and then make it jumpy. Like do this, add these clips in so it's jumping really fast. And I'm like, oh whoa, like that's what a short is. And everyone's thinking that way. They're just trying to addict you and they know it.
Yeah. And that's the thing about media, right? And just like that's the thing about and how it works, right? It's about keeping your attention to continue to go longer in the short, and then I mean it's the same thing with YouTube as well, right? And but what I liked about YouTube is that a couple years back they put a huge incentive for creators that made videos past 10 minutes. and their ad revenue increased like heavily if their video got over 10 minutes. So that's why you see a lot of consistent creators or it may have altered back to 8 recently, but the kind of combat shorts, because let's be honest, a lot of our friends can't, and I'm talking about, like you said, less disciplined people that are less structured, we could say, that are more familiar with that. But yeah, we really don't see it here in Michigan, but there also is a lot of people that are addicted as well, but a minority compared to it being a majority, I would say, from high school.
Yeah, I've noticed it been pretty high quality people here, man. I like the people
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like every couple of days I meet a new person that I could see myself having a lifelong relationship with, or continue to get to know someone, and everyone has their own story too, which is the best part, like everyone, what I really liked here about Michigan and what I've learned from maybe my first couple weeks being here is that once you're observing people, you kind of think a lot of people are, perfect in a sense. But really, as you start to peel some layers back, you're like, wow, this person's as effed up as I am, not screwed up, but as in there's faults, right? Like no one's perfect. And I think we kind of get that perceived notion when we come to a new place, we don't really know people, but then once we start to understand people, you start to realize that, we're all humans in a sense. We're all not perfect, which is okay.
Cool in a way.
And should be accepted too, And I also think at high level universities such as Michigan, everyone is trying to be perfect in a sense. And part of the battle is admitting to yourself that that's part of being human, is not being perfect. Even though you can strive to be as perfect as possible, there's going to be natural faults along the way that create learning lessons, right? So I think that's something I've definitely learned while being here.
And I think it's one of the most exciting parts about life. Like I was thinking about this last night. I went on a little walk around campus and I was thinking about how much I love people. Like I couldn't exist if there weren't other people. Because
same.
There's something that's so much fun to me about just like meeting someone and entering their universe for a little bit, just having a conversation with them.
Exactly.
And just learning about like these are the things I really want in life, and these are the things they're thinking about all day. And these are the problems they're dealing with and the dragons they're trying to slay right now. And everyone's on their own like path, and you have these kind of conversations with some people, and I think it gets you thinking about spirituality a little bit too, like about the universe, because for some reason, like everyone's life path has been so perfect because everyone comes to the same realization that, I'm so grateful that all those things happened to me because all these random chance moments led to this perfect outcome. And we're not even at the perfect end of the outcome yet.
Exactly.
But I think everyone is so fascinating how everyone kind of, at least as they mature, come to some realization, but it doesn't have to be religion, but some kind of spiritual realization about how things are connected in the universe. And for me, it's really strengthening just talking to people because it's amazing to just kind of enter their life and say, like, this is exactly where they are along this journey, and this is where they're at, and this is where they're going, and then I can come out of that. I'm like, wow, that was really cool to explore that, and that's one of my favorite parts about life, and I think it motivates this a lot too. Like I've done 70 of these so far, and every podcast is it's so much fun to explore.
100%, and I really like that statement you made, but specifically with chain reaction of events, like an example, like for me. If I didn't have this specific English teacher senior year, I wouldn't be here at Michigan. I had this English teacher who ended up having a connection to the admissions process here.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was don't get me wrong, like I was a prospective student here. I had 3.9 GPA, like a 4.6 weighted, 3-sport athlete. I had extracurriculars. I had a good SAT score, but first round coming from Kalamazoo, Michigan, from a school that only got 6 or 7 kids in, and most of those kids were the 4-point top of the class kids. I was in the top 5 or 10%, but you realize that this world is really based off of relationships and who you meet and who you know and who you can see people evolving into, right? Because my teacher could notice and be like, okay, yeah, he's a decent student, he's all right, but having that sort of, or wanting to strive to almost uplift other people and put people in situations they know they'll thrive is I mean, something life-changing, and something that's the reason why I'm drawn to education so much, you know, having that sort of connection and changing kids' life like my life, for having the opportunity to come here and get a great professional degree in whatever I decide to get. Like, it changes people's lives. Education changes lives as well.
Yeah, I want to explore that because you want to be a high school principal, right?
Yeah, my dream is to be a high school principal. And now when I tell people that are in neuroscience or that are going pre-med or pre-law, they kind of laugh because you don't see a lot of kids at Michigan, you know, saying that. But I'm very upfront about that as well. Like, I think education is the most powerful tool, like, in the universe. It changes lives. It changes how people see things. It changes how people feel about things. It changes how empathetic we are towards other groups. It can change anywhere from expanding your knowledge in a certain sector that you want to go into, but then it can also allow you to put yourself in other people's shoes, which is it's probably the most important skill in education, is putting yourself in other shoes, right? With that being literature, with that being even math, like how things are discovered or conceptualized. And without having kids being engaged in it properly, our livelihood, as we know, fails. So, and I think I've gained that appreciation because my dad and my mom both being teachers as well.
Oh, nice.
My dad still is an elementary PE teacher, and my mom's a second grade teacher. So they work with the littles, kind of creating those, you know, those more younger sort of skills. But I think high school is such a pivotal time in a kid's life. I mean, think of how much you've grown mentally and physically from freshman year to senior year. Like,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah. And the guidance that occurs in those 4 years really makes or breaks a kid's future, right? Like, if you don't have teachers that are talking about, hey, you know what, maybe being on TikTok for 4 hours isn't good. And maybe for the first 5 minutes of your class, I love teachers that take the first 5 to 10 minutes of class or before class and they actually teach you something real. You know, you may be in English class, you may be in math class, but the teachers that I found have had the most impact on my life have always had a sort of introduction where they're talking about real life. You know, we're not talking about Shakespeare, we're not talking about geometry, we're talking about, hey, these are skills that you need to have in your life in order to create a life for yourself, right? To create a life that has belonging and that that hopefully one day you can support a family on.
Wow, that's powerful, dude. And I think there is something unique about people that you can't access it without a physical person in front of you. And I can give you an example. Like, you can improve your life from reading a book. You can improve your life from listening to a podcast where someone explicitly tells you do X, Y, Z. Like, stop scrolling on TikTok for 4 hours a day. But there's something different you feel when you're around someone that you just admire and you can't explain why.
Who cares?
Who cares too?
And that's the most important part.
And
who cares? Who notices you? Who sees the struggles that you're going through exactly that you went through when you were a freshman or sophomore, you know? And I was that kid. I was that kid that was trying to figure stuff out freshman and sophomore year and then was able to have teachers that took me under their wing and taught me things that I still apply to myself this day, you know? And I remember just simple things like making your bed.
Yes.
Like, and those things set you up for life and set you up for the rest of your life, outside of learning geometry or those specific skills. In my opinion, the true thing that matters is the skills that are taught from the mentors. And that's outside of, you know, the concepts that are taught in school.
Yeah, I agree, dude. And I think sometimes you meet someone and it immediately clicks in your head that just being around them, you feel this kind of energy where it's like something makes sense here. I don't know what it is, but I kind of like this person. I want to be around them. And often with more time, you can start to realize why that is. But sometimes just the personality, the energy give, and you can tell when they care and when they don't care.
Yeah.
And I think when people build success in their life and they see like a younger version of themselves who was struggling too, because everyone struggled before they became successful, then it's like they find joy in helping people. Like, I'm sure you find joy in like when someone who's younger. Or
I can't see myself not doing a job that has that sort of characteristic. Yeah,
so it's an amazing part of life. Whether it's like someone who's in the gym for the first time and you happen to just talk to them because you're just being social in the gym and you just realize that this is like the first week he's ever been in there, and then you kind of enjoy helping them out, you know?
Yeah, or giving a spot, or you know, hey, when we're squatting, maybe don't have all the pressure on your toes and look like you're about to fall forward. Put it back on the heels.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of life because the transformation you make when you're surrounded with people you look up to is astronomical.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're telling you do this and you do that. Just being around them, your brain starts to operate in the same way their brains operate. And I feel like all the growth I've seen in my life has come from surrounding myself with people that I really either respect or look up to or are motivated by. Like, I think I respect my dad a lot too. I think he set a great foundation for the values I hold right now from when growing up. But even beyond that, like, I think since that's kind of the baseline, because that's where I started with, and those are the values I already had. I think as I met people throughout my life, like in high school, whether that be even like my wrestling coach, for example, like someone just being around him, his energy. I think what I liked most about him was that he cares about his community a lot, and he's driven by giving back and selflessness, and he manifests that in so many ways. Because I find it fascinating the time and dedication he's put into the program at our school. Like, our program was in 2016 or 2014, there were conversations about shutting it off completely. We were so bad. In the 2000s, we were competing with some of the biggest schools in the nation in wrestling. We were elite. In 2014, we were about to shut down the program because we had no one left.
What was your school size?
Our school size, my graduating class, like 150. So
okay, so about 600.
Small school,
roughly.
small boarding school, and
Yeah.
at a pivotal time when we were so asked that they were about to shut off the whole program for the first time in our school's history.
Yeah.
After my wrestling coach came, he's been building this program effortlessly, and I've done podcasts with him, and I've learned about his whole thought process behind it is so different. The way he looks at it is, it all builds off of this care for the people on the team,
Yeah.
and building the culture and building like stronger men and women is like his whole motto. Like, he doesn't care. He cares less about if we win or lose. He cares more about building like men with good values and women with good values, and that manifests in a victory. My senior season is the first time he had a winning record since he came here.
Wow.
And I could see that people like that, and I'm sure you have similar mentors, people in high school, teachers you look up to. You just surround them, and at first you can't explain why, but it just feels correct, and you surround yourself. You start to learn with time why it feels correct, and you start to become like them.
Yeah.
And you look in the mirror, it's like, wow, like I've changed a lot. And
Yeah.
it's nice, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest adjustments for me here at Michigan, is then having to restart and create the new connections here, especially with you talking about mentor-like figures, right? Yeah. I love what you're talking about specifically with how the mentor, it's almost like a revolving cycle, right? Because at the same time, your mentor, the wrestling coach, has someone that he's looking to for advice to then trickle down to you, right? The young adult or the kid that you're working with. And another thing too is the amount of dedication that high school coaches have for what they are receiving it's unfathomable. Like, it's actually insane. Like, a head football coach gets paid about $8,000, I'd say, in Michigan, and that's already crazy. After receiving your teaching salary. It's like kind of like a stipend.
And the impact they're making on kids' lives, that money does not reflect that impact.
100%. And they're putting in 30 to 40 hours a week during season time. 100%. I mean, weekends, film all day, pretty much. Practices for 4 hours. Yeah, the amount of return isn't the money. It's impacting lives and knowing that kids are going off to college doing great things, right? Or setting themselves up, or trying to find connections for kids because you know that kid matters. And I don't think there's anything else that can really leave more of a powerful impact in this life
than teachers.
Than teaching, yeah.
In my opinion, I hope that in our lifetime we could see, A, teachers get paid a lot more.
Yeah.
And B, with that extra funding that we're putting into the system, a filtering system that we can actually emphasize teachers who care more, who either do better their job, but not even by some arbitrary metric, but more just about the values they have and the impact they can have on the children. Because I think that, I agree, education is so important, and I just wish that, A, the teachers who are putting in the work can actually get paid what they deserve, and B, because of the increased payment, we actually incentivize people to become better teachers, and also just so that we can filter out teachers who are just there and who don't care about it. There are definitely teachers like that.
I feel like my school is very much evenly divided across the spectrum of a great teacher to a poor teacher. And really your life can be changed. Like, what if I didn't get my English teacher? What if I got the other? There's 3 English teachers that taught IB English, and I got Miss Thorpe. I didn't get Mr. Weber or Mr. Colo. If I would have had either of those 2, my life would be completely different. So thinking about that chain reaction too is like, it's crazy, and it alters a lot of kids' lives too. Like, if you didn't have that one teacher teaching you this, you may have not gone into mathematics, or may have not gone into English. And I think that's something that teachers need to think about every day with their decisions, with what they're implementing on kids, what they're teaching kids by how they're acting as well. Like, if you're a teacher that's on your phone for half the class, like while kids are doing the homework problem, like they're noticing that. They're noticing that you're not caring, therefore they'll be on their phones. So it's kind of just a mirror, right? Like, however the teacher's looking or portraying themselves, that's how the kids are also going to act. So I think that's probably one of the most important principles in education, and that I've noticed, and that something that I kind of want to change within a possible school district, right? Because you have that wide spectrum of different teachers who are poor or are excellent. You want to incentivize, like you said, everyone to get to that polar side of being excellent.
And I think as principal of a school, or in the position of power in a school district, I think one of the biggest things you can do is build that culture. Because even I think a lot of people think that, okay, how do we fix the system? They first think about the institutional, legal repercussions, or whatever you can like build at a systematic level, and they think that's naturally going to change things. But I think culture plays a much bigger role than people think. Like, if you think about fitness, for example, we can talk shit about TikTok, but the fitness community that's been built off of short form content has literally made this huge influx of people going to the gym.
100%.
It's culture now. It's a cool thing to go to the gym, and everyone's talking about it, and everyone's sharing their workout programs. And I think like short form platforms like TikTok have built that culture, and it's become, nothing in the government was changed that made people go to the gym more. It just became a cool cultural thing. And I wonder in the same way, definitely within the region that you're operating in as a principal, whatever, I don't know, if Kalamazoo, wherever it might be.
Yeah.
And you could definitely.
I'm not against expanding. I would wherever, to be honest.
But I wonder, sure, you have power over that region. If you were in a position of higher power, you can take this from a legal approach, or even a cultural approach. Like, how would you improve the education system? Or do you even think the education system is improving? Like, are you happy with the current education system, or what do you think could be better, and how would you think about or good strategies to do that?
So let's first kind of talk about the current state of the education, just education in general. Right now, we're in a threat of possibly education going to be privatized, and that scares the living shit out of me, because now I want you to think about like a very normal consumer type of market, right? Like, let's say pizzas, for example. You have pizzas all the way down. Let's do another spectrum right here. This is poor. This is great. Poor, you have your frozen pizzas for $1.50, right? That you can get at Meijer. But then you can go, what's the fanciest pizza place you could
Joe's Pizza. That's in the middle.
Joe's $5 a slice, right?
Okay, that's pretty cheap.
One slice of, compared to the entire frozen pizza for $1.50 though.
It's better, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about like price and the quality, and that's what education's going to become. Yeah. And what's going to happen is that families are going to get a dollar amount. They're going to get a dollar amount that they can push towards any school if this ends up being passed within federal legislation.
Can we take a step back real quick? So when you say that education is gonna become privatized, are you referring to like the Department of Education getting removed, and therefore
so it would be okay. So
would that mean that
education would be wiped out?
If the Department of Education is gone, does that mean that no school will receive public funding?
No,
or government funding?
So the money will go specifically to the household, and then the household will decide with the money that they receive to then go to almost think of it as in, so for example, like with me, I went to a public school.
Right.
You remember Count Day? Were you ever a part of a Count Day? You went. Okay, so with public schools, there's always a Count Day.
I went to a boarding school.
Yeah. So there's a Count Day, and any student who's there during Count Day, that money, or each student has about, I think it's 1,100. And so every student that's present on account day, that money goes to the school. And that's the funding that is given from, and then there's also funding that's given that's separate from there. But there would basically be dollar amounts that would be given to each household, depending on how many kids you have and their age, to then be used to essentially buy an education. But here's the thing, you're going to have all the good schools are going to be above that dollar amount, right? You're going to have really good schools. Let's say this is completely like theoretical. Let's say every kid is allotted $10K, but your really good schools, your average schools are going to be above that price. They're going to be at like $15K. So now you're going to have to pay better money.
So who's deciding how much each student gets? Or each student represents?
It would be allotted by the federal government.
And what are the factors that they use to determine that this school, each student gets 1,100, this school, each student gets
So everybody's going to be given the same dollar amount, but imagine like we just said, like you could go and get a frozen pizza, right? Or you could go to Joe's. And so the money that you have, but you only have this amount of money. So if you want the really good pizza, then you have to pay for it.
You're deciding that.
Exactly. So that's what's really going to suck. And it's going to become pay to play, just like how everything else is becoming. And education has been the one thing that stayed not pay to play, you know? I mean, there's definitely really good boarding schools that can offer a better education, but I went to a really good public school. And I'm very thankful for that as well. And that definitely depends on demographics, what state you're in, and what region of the state you're living in, and how they prioritize education. But yeah, that's really scary to me because, you know, Jimmy, who's 5 years old, about to go into kindergarten, he's not the one that decides what financial state his parents are in, right? So how should that say when Alex over here, who has parents both making six figures, who should say that they should have different educations just because they're born in a different situation, you know? And that kind of just goes back to being equitable, right? I think that's something that is so important and has to be a part of all of our legislation. We have to be able to give people equal opportunity, because not equal, I call it equitable, you know? So yeah, that's but to go back to actually answer your question, I kind of want to hit on the current state though, because that's important to think about.
I think it's important that we first establish what the current state is.
Yeah, but to answer your question of how I would like to sort of,
I guess let's finish this point though, because I think this is interesting.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Is there any nation in the world today that has fully 100% privatized education?
Not that comes. I really don't know international publication.
I'm curious about how it's played out there, and like what's actually happened so far.
I bet that's being thought about for sure. But I also think that education is just too important to not have under the scope of government guidelines. Right. And to have your own department, and to have it just can't be up to free enterprise. Mm-hmm. Because you know, once it becomes business, the only thing that matters is flipping the dollar, not the kids that you're trying to change and the kids you're trying to educate. Mm-hmm. It doesn't become that. And it also makes it less of a it's more of a transactional process rather than a transformative process, which is something that is so important. And when I know that I'm doing something for someone because of money, instead of like the own goodness of my heart, you feel something different, you know? Transformative sort of actions or relationships are way more important and impactful, in my opinion and for my own experiences, rather than transactional. Imagine if you're a kid knowing that you're paying like $20K to go to this school, and these teachers are, you know, you realize that your teachers are only businessmen really and don't really have a sort of conscience in a way.
So you think privatization would cause there to be poor teachers?
I think so. I think that the schools that will charge more money to get the better teachers and better sort of access to materials and you know, classwork and all the above, those are the schools that are going to be higher than the allotted dollar amount that's given the households.
Right. So if they have more money, they're incentivized to hire.
Yeah, it's people, just they're going to go into different sectors of the market, right?
Yes.
Like, and then there will be and then what will also be able to happen is that if someone's making, you know, let's say that dollar amount, because we don't know what the dollar amount would be. Let's say if it was $10,000, there's an option that was less than 10,000. So you're going to have a lot of poor communities that, or just poor families that will decide to go with the cheaper option because then that money goes back to them.
Yeah.
So really, it's kind of it's messed up. It's really messed up, and I hope that doesn't become the reality because it really makes no sense. Because now you're weakening the education system in America. So, and I get there. This would open up the economy. I think education would probably make up a couple % of the overall economy. Like it would become a huge sector of the economy and would, in a sense, better it because we're expanding it. But I just don't see it benefiting enough to have it being privatized.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I know that the abolition of the nanny state is like something a lot of conservative politicians are pushing. The nanny state. It's basically that destroying a lot of the government bureaucracies to make a smaller government.
Yeah.
I know that's something a lot of politicians are pushing these days. I can understand where they come from. I do agree with the ideology of a meritocracy, and I do believe in the idea of equal opportunity and unequal outcome.
Yeah.
I understand, and I can understand where those arguments come from, but I think that I agree with you on the point that education is so baked into that ideology of equal opportunity. And I think that if you're born into a situation where you are forced to go to a poorer school versus a more expensive school, and that's, I'm forgetting the word, but that's generalized to the whole population, that can have systemic impacts that I think can last. So I see that point, and I think it's a pretty strong point that I want to explore more about, because I'm curious about how it does play out, though, because I know that it wasn't Trump's main agenda. I think it's on his list. I know it's on any typical conservative agenda of smaller government. I know that there are other politicians. I think Vivek is really heavy on abolishing education. So I've definitely seen that there are definitely actors out there. I personally cannot predict what will happen based on any decision made, but I think that's a strong argument, though. I think it's a strong argument that we can see what it's done to other industries, and I like capitalism in America. I think it's created an incredible country that the world has never seen before.
And it's because of our education system, and that we provide free public education. Of course, it's not free; it comes from taxation, of course. But it's why America is the heavyweight. So.
Well, I think a lot of people do say that our education system is worse than a lot of other countries. What do you think about that?
And that is also true, but we're also comparing to countries that are microscopic compared to size-wise.
So you think expanding the size of a country will make the education system, or how do you draw the line between like the size and the education system? Like,
there's just more resources to allocate, right?
Okay.
So you have to, when the nations that I'm referring to are kind of like your Norway, Sweden, New Zealand. Actually, Australia is one of the bigger nations that has. It's probably the biggest nation with the best.
What's their population? Though? It's not that high.
I think they're. I can't give you a number to be honest.
I'm curious.
I could say something, but it'll be incorrect.
It's hard to estimate big numbers.
Yeah, but I guarantee it's 50 mil plus.
26 million, bro. Yeah. What's up? Yeah, go for it. No worries. Yeah, Australia's 26 million. That's small, dude. What's the USA? We're like 300.
Wait. What was Australia?
26 million. It's tiny, bro.
Wow.
Because let's just wait for him and then we'll continue. Yeah.
What about Norway compared to Norway or Sweden or New Zealand even?
Norway's 5 million.
Okay.
But dude, 26 is tiny, bro. Because if you think about it, most of the population is in like Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane. The whole entirety of the geography is empty, bro.
Yeah. I still assumed that they were around 50.
No. It's crazy.
But still, compared operating with 25 mil versus 5 mil is completely different.
And the US is 300 mil.
Yeah.
So.
But the United States is definitely, because what are we at, about almost 350 million? Yeah, that's completely different, providing a good education for everyone versus 5 million in Sweden. So
cool.
Yeah, it's a different sort of sample size.
Interesting. So we touched on the potential impacts of privatization of education. Do you think that is the primary concern with the education system? Are there other things, besides privatization? Do you think there are other aspects of the education system we need to address before we talk about solutions? Or
I would say a very large issue in education has to go with probably local funding. So that's the next big thing is, like, for example, the district I went to school, Portage, they had kind of unreal property taxes to pay for the great education they're receiving. But yet, in different areas, more rural areas, your property taxes are less. And that's kind of to reflect, political or local political trends, right? Like if an area is conservative or more liberal. And I see that just as an issue just because kind of education really varies where you go. Like I live in Marcellus, Michigan, pay little to, we don't really pay that much property tax. Their school is not that good. Portage, where I'm school of choice, or we're school of choice in high school. And
say school of choice?
School of choice, yeah. So in Michigan, I think it's like this in some schools. It depends state to state. You can go to a school out of your address. So everyone's kind of designated a school. Yeah, out of your region. And the reason why is because my dad works in Portage. And my dad used to be athletic director in the small school at Marcellus. So that is a big issue because, kind of how we're talking about resources being allocated equally. Everyone's receiving different education from where they live, but I also don't see necessarily a solution to that. It's just something that I've noticed because I've gone to two different schools. I went to Three Rivers High School where my mom taught, and in 6th grade, there was about 250 kids in my class, and we didn't have a single honors program from 6th to 8th grade. I was in my 6th grade math class, and my teacher was working with half the kids on multiplication facts in 6th grade. And I was over here bored out of my mind, right? Like I should be starting to learn some,
you transferred schools here? Yeah,
so I transferred to Portage because of that. And that it doesn't offer equal opportunity, but that also reflects the legislation that's being enacted and the values that people represent. But then also, at the same time, we're talking about comparing two people and if they're receiving the same resources or not. That's also an issue. But I don't really see a solution fixing that.
That's a tough one.
It's very tough.
Yeah, you can't make it like
that's inevitable. That's just an inevitable flaw of education, right? It depending on local legislation and how much funding is going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible to establish like 100% equal opportunity. There's going to be some nuance to it. Yeah.
And another thing too, Portage Northern has a very high amount of kids who are school of choice. Like my football team, dude, half the kids going there didn't live in Portage. I was one of them. It was something like 14 out of 22 of our starters my senior year didn't live in Portage or didn't go to school in Portage in middle school or elementary. So that's that's how important education is. It's so important that I drove an hour and 15 minutes there and back every day.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Dude.
Yeah. So it's about a 35.
For your dad, like he works there, so it was an additional commute.
Yeah, okay. So it made sense.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like it was just my education. It was also my dad's job. So
it kind of worked out. Hopefully. Yeah. Nice. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, again, that's a tough one.
It is.
We can put that on the table and just look at it a little bit, but yeah, we can address to the degree we can. But I think that if we think of education in this binary way of the goal is to get to college, then I think the solution to that is I think colleges account for that when they're in the application process. I think that's the best solution we have so far, where they'll ask you if you have any special circumstances. And I think there are different representatives, or different admissions officers in charge of different regions. So you're kind of competing relatively.
And Michigan does a great job with that. Yeah. Michigan has a program, because Michigan's 50-50 in-state, out-of-state. If you're in-state...
University of Michigan or the state?
University of Michigan.
Oh, okay.
If you're in state and you went to a rural school that didn't have X amount of honors or IB or AP classes you could take, you have to take a seminar.
Yeah.
You have to take a seminar here, and it kind of helps. So they help with that process, but that's just another caveat about education, right? It depends where you live. It depends I don't want it to also depend on where you live and also your family's financial status, because then that creates such a even larger disparity, right? So, yeah.
I'm all for pushing as hard as we can to equal opportunity. It's gonna be imperfect. It'll always be
Yeah.
imperfect, but I'm definitely for equal opportunity at all costs.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the possible privatizing schools?
It's hard for me to say. I don't want to. I think I need to learn more about it.
Okay.
I can understand the ideology of wanting a smaller government. That I can
Yeah.
understand because that's, I think, one of the principles our country was founded based off of the idea that a lot of the autonomy is on the states, and we have not a government that's in charge of its fundamental roles, such as protecting the borders, protecting private property rights, etc. And I think there are definitely roles of the government. I'm not saying we don't need a government. I don't want some
Yeah.
Articles of Confederation situation.
Yeah,
There's definitely some
yeah.
definitely important parts of it, but
Mhm.
I can understand the conservative perspective that a lot of the bureaucracies are kind of there and they're kind of useless in a way. I'm not putting education in the category, but I think there are bureaucracies that are kind of sitting around making rules that are not necessarily necessary in a way.
And that are also corrupt in a sense.
Yeah, which
And-
we can explore that too.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a lot of, yeah. I mean,
But-
don't even get me started about the FDA.
Yeah. Oh man, FDA. I think I was talking about this with my Australian friend. I think the FDA guidelines for the amount of protein someone should be eating is 0.36 grams per pound. And we have enough research now showing that you need protein, whether you're bodybuilding or not.
Yeah.
That's one of the most essential nutrients. And,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's definitely an issue. I see. I don't know if I can throw education in the category yet without learning more, because I can see your points and I think they're very well outlined in a way. Because the only points I've heard from the conservative side about why the education system is unnecessary, or the current system, is the first point I've heard was that that it was established primarily in the 1900s during the civil rights movement, and at a time it was established primarily to increase equitability in terms of black and white representation in schools. So
Yeah.
that's why it was established, and it achieved that goal through the 1900s, and it's, I think, right now where it's the best the country's ever seen.
Yeah.
And now that the reason it was established has kind of been solved, there's not much necessity for that anymore, because now they're kind of just making stuff up of like, they're saying that, okay, your curriculum must follow XYZ. You must be doing XYZ. If you don't put this in your curriculum, we're not going to give you funding. And those kind of rules established, I think a lot of conservatives are against that. Why should the federal government make those decisions? That's not the role of the government or the federal government, which is a strong point. I agree with it. I think that maybe I wouldn't agree with destroying the entirety of the bureaucracy, which I think Elon Musk and Vivek are very heavy. Like, just get rid of it. Just keep getting rid of it. And I think that's a little extreme.
I think so too.
They say that being extreme is good because then you'll actually make big change. I think we should chill a little bit, because I think that you can't break one thing without breaking 100 different things, you know? So I think that the point you make is probably stronger in my eyes about the impact it could have by introducing capitalism into the education system. And I think the repercussions of that are probably stronger than just, oh, you can't teach archery or something like
I
that.
was about to say the same exact
So-
word. It's a repercussions of putting in the private sector. Yes, it's imperfect regardless. But I also feel that it's a very small amount of school or small amount of cases that we hear about certain sort of ideologies being put down kids' throats, right? And I feel like it's put out of, I feel like it's scapegoated beyond what it should be. It's really kind of, I feel like it's fear mongering in a sense, you know?
Wait, can you repeat that? That we're pushing an ideology.
Yeah,
to
like that schools are teaching kids to be transgender, for an example, or, you know, those type of things. Like, for the amount of schools and the amount of classrooms that I've been in, that's never brought up, you know?
I've seen some stuff.
If through, like, seeing as in through media or like
Through school. I
Okay.
mean, look, again, we both have limited experience, and
Yeah.
fear mongering is something we both agree exists.
Yeah.
I can't say some factual statement on the dot, but while I will say that I do agree with all the points you made so far about why privatization can be dangerous, I do
Yeah.
think that might still be a problem, which I think we can talk about, because
Yeah.
I do think that the school systems are heavily liberal in a way, and there's a lot of liberal points I agree with, but I think the extreme wokeism is a little bit too much, and I think that
What
by
topics for you when you say extreme wokeism? What do you think falls under that?
I think I would
for you?
say in the last 10, 20 years, the extreme push and narrative about LGBTQ LGBTQ,
There you go.
DEI, and transgender.
Okay.
I think that I'm not against any of that. I'm not against anyone who wants to take part in that.
Yeah.
I am against that being pushed as a narrative and setting morals based on that, because
Yeah.
I do think that it's had the kind of opposite effect where I didn't grow up thinking anyone was less than anyone else. I kind of grew up thinking that the world was a pretty happy, fun place until you grow up and
Yeah.
realize all this other shit.
As you do
And
when
then-
you're in the sandbox and
Yeah.
on the swings.
Yeah, just like playing, hitting volleyballs around or whatever we used to
Yeah.
do. And I just think that recently the turn it's taken is that they've gone so hard in trying to push for the rights of certain individuals and this woke culture that it's had the opposite effect, where I think the hatred toward those groups has increased. So if the goal is really to have a society where we can accept everyone, I don't think they're achieving that goal through the victimhood culture and by pushing everyone's face all the time.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I disagree with.
Yeah. A couple of things. So when you said the three things that fell under like extreme wokeism, LGBTQ, let's first hit on that. I see the LGBTQ community just being a community very similar to the Civil Rights Act Civil rights in the movement of it. I see it's very similar to that in a sense where people are advocating to be seen as one-to-one. And I feel like there's a large amount of people who don't see people who are under LGBTQ that are seen as equally. And I think that's why you see people advocating for it, and why you see some people, like all extremes, right, all different sides of spectrum, that are putting it down people's throat because they're trying to be heard, right? They're trying to be heard because they're seen in a different light when really they're also just human. And my other thing is I'm a white straight male. How should I know what being gay feels like, or wanting to possibly change my gender? So I try to put myself in someone else's shoes, right? Just like with DEI, just like with being a black man that didn't have his father growing up. Like, I don't know how it's like to be in that sort of situation. Right. And so that's why I support those sort of organizations or objectives, because I don't know what it's like to be in those sort of shoes.
I agree with that.
But also at the same time, like, you're 100% right. There are some points or some things that can be overexpressed and can be put higher than the essential components, right? And I also do see that. And I also do see it being a distraction sometimes. So it's all about kind of balancing it, but also thinking about what truly is LGBTQ and people being transgender and DEI as well. What are those key components from a humane aspect, right? It's really people that are just trying to express themselves that have been under siege for the past hundreds of years because they're different than the status quo, right? And in this country, the status quo is the white man. Right. So I see that as groups of people who are different advocating for themselves and advocating to be seen as equal light. And I think we've done a lot, but then also there are distractions that come along with it.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't disagree with most points. Yeah. I think let's separate LGBTQ, DEI, and then transgender as something separate we can talk about as the current situation with transgender. Yeah. I think that I agree, and I have no hatred toward any group. I'm happy that if you're gay, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. If you're I have friends of all different races, no problem with that. Do you think that their goal to be heard is achieved through the method they're using right now?
What do you think methods are? Could you clarify
so,
methods?
For example, our school, my high school I went to had something called a DEI day, where they would once every term they would have this day where you're forced to sit there and they just talk to you. And by the way, I like the idea of the day a lot, that you're basically learning about different cultures, like school, for example.
Do people come in attire or
no, it's chill.
It's not like that at all.
It's required attendance though. That's the only thing. But you'd be at school otherwise. So I mean, it's the same thing. Which by an ideology is nothing wrong with that. Yeah. It's education at the end of the day. But when they're in your face telling you that you're a bad person if you don't do X, and we're this and you're that, you must do this, and
you had that type of experience.
It was pretty extreme at the school I went to.
See, but I went to a public school.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that at all. You know.
Okay.
But what I hear a lot of outrage from is public school.
Wow. Okay.
It's public schools are doing that, but yet I think you're seeing that a lot at the privatized level. and the privatized level will be a part of the privatized level once you make it private. I don't see that.
So it goes
I
back to
don't
that
see
point, yeah.
public schools like having events like that, because one thing, there's enough funding.
Private schools do whatever they
There's
want.
not enough funding for it. That's the other
Yeah.
thing too. Like, we're just trying to buy textbooks and have enough seats for kids, and that's another thing.
So that supports your other point. That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I say approach, that's what I mean. And sure, maybe not everyone has had that same experience because most people have been to public schools, normal public schools. And I also think that narrative is pushed, through education system. I've seen a little bit of it here where I've noticed that my teacher, I'm not going to name names or classes, but one of the teachers in one of my classes.
We're not going to do it.
It's very, not here. Come call me later if you want to know. It's an extremely one-sided. It's not. She doesn't go in and say that she's one-sided, but she will represent the content in a way that's one-sided, and she will put up incorrect things that will politicize you into believing a certain way.
Gotcha.
For example, with Israel-Palestine conflicts, and the main idea with the class was about the internet and digital media, and she would say incorrect things that are completely untrue. That she said she had a slide up on her screen that said that if you Google, why are black girls so, all the words that came up in the automatic search feed for Google, where like it fills in the blank for you, were all negative. So unintelligent, so ugly. They had all these negative words. And what she put up in Google on her slideshow, she had, why are white girls so? And it said like pretty and good at singing, all this stuff. And like I saw them, like, is that really true? And I went on Google and it was completely inaccurate. If I go and show you right
Do
now.
you think that she found it on a social media
I don't- I'm not-
and then
I'm
she
not gonna
screenshot it?
I'm not going to say any like incentives or anything or what she was trying to do, but I'm just saying that that's incorrectly portrayed and taught. Like if I search up right now.
And it's trying to push the narrative. So
if I search up why are black girls so hot, pretty, beautiful, attractive, and it was actually negative for white girls.
Black women are.
If I search up why are white girls so, okay, now it's positive. Before when I searched it, it's always tanning and all this random stuff. Right now it says hot, cute, popular, beautiful. Okay, that's fine. But it's positive for both of them. And another one was that she went on her slide. She did ChatGPT and she said, "Do Israelites deserve to be free?" And on a separate one, "Do Palestinians deserve to be free?" And I don't remember which one is which, but on one of them, I personally don't know enough about the conflict and what side's on what side.
It's
on one of them, I
it's
could
so
care.
deep.
Like, it's annoying. I care about the conflict. I care less about the political side of it, in America at least. I think one of them said that yes, there as all people blank deserves to be free, and the other one said this is a controversial issue. I cannot speak on this. And I'm like, let me try that shit. And I do it, and it said for both of them on separate messages on separate accounts, it's like they both deserve to be free. So it's like, okay, maybe my ChatGPT is different than yours. Maybe yours happened to say that, or maybe I don't know, you made that up.
But it's also a reoccurring theme.
Yeah, or maybe it's just the liberal forcing through education system trying to politicize a certain group.
Yeah. And you're not wrong. Like, that's definitely something that is there. That's like liberal ideology can definitely be expressed within school because I mean that's a majority of teachers. A hard majority of teachers are liberal, and that's because
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, it's because like what's on the conservative agenda possibly like down on the list because there's a bunch of more important things.
You can't complain about that,
Yeah, they're gonna abolish it, which will then even lower teacher wages even more because then it's about profit, So yeah, I think that's interesting because right now I'm taking a American culture class and it shows the depiction of African Americans and Muslims in media and the lack of representation that is shown within both groups. And it's really eye-opening. Like, it's extremely eye-opening because the sort of characters and the themes that you see within Black and Muslim stars within pop culture or media, they play reoccurring type of roles. And that's either a couple that come off the top of my head is the Sapphire role, which is kind of the angry it's the Sapphire is kind of the supporting female role, typically played by a Black woman who kind of supports and helps out the main character who's typically Caucasian. And that's, I mean, you can see that in dozens of different examples. And now we're sort of seeing representation being leveled out, but that sort of representation within media and within pop culture is what we see, and then what also kind of would cause a lot of racist undertones. But I do think at the same time we're progressing towards a better future for that. So, and that's also something that needs to be discussed as well. I feel like every day we are evolving and creating a more equitable and free world, and that's something that really that needs to be acknowledged. It's not. It's right. The time right now is not the 1960s at all, and I can agree with that. Or I can say that to anyone. So, yeah.
And to steelman the case for the progressive side a little bit, I think that one thing that I find pretty interesting is that I think the biggest conservative argument is that in an ideal meritocracy, naturally the people who deserve to be the best will become and rise to the best. Yeah. So if we just make it equal for everyone, if we stop this, like in an application, we're gonna ask you separately if you're of a certain like LGBTQ or race, so that we can pool for those people differently or something, so that increase our representation. A lot of conservatives believe that in an ideal meritocracy, we shouldn't have that, because naturally the people who demonstrate the best skills and talents will rise to the top. I think that
there's also a lot of flaws with that as well, because
which I'm gonna get to right now.
That also means your financial expendability and who's the wealthiest ethnicity or race, and that's the white person.
Because I agree that an ideal meritocracy would work, but unfortunately that the current situation that we think that the past is the past, but it impacts the present heavily. I think that because of our history of America through the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, where we are now, I think that it's left impacts that still last. And whether that's impacts from slavery or the civil rights movement, it's true. I agree with your points that there are certain groups that have not been represented as equally. Mm-hmm. And I do think that we need to actually take a step forward and account for that, and actually take actions that can help to even that out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I disagree with the approach. I think that we can take steps. I don't know what those steps are. Yeah. Even if that is something similar, where maybe not as extreme, but similar in a way that we can increase awareness. Like, I'm pretty open-minded. I'm very happy to learn about, like, this is a problem. Like, how can we fix it? But I'm against a politicization without you being informed of it at a large scale, and people being in your face yelling at you on media and in person. Besides that,
which there is on the liberal unfortunately sector.
Yeah, but I think that I have hope though in future either presidential candidates we get. I'm excited for like this next round after we get done with Trump, and we have this new round of great candidates who can hopefully
on both sides.
Lead the vision. Yeah, on both sides. I'm excited for like more young, more well-spoken, better candidates. I think we've not had that since in a minute. It's been a couple of years. But I do think that we can move toward that ideal society, and I just think that, at least for the progressive side, they can make some adjustments to their approach, in my opinion. But,
yeah. And I also think, like, you get one bad apple from the tree. I don't think that can necessarily generalize the entire, but also in a sense it does too. I think a majority of liberals are not in your face and are fairly educated.
I agree.
And I think that we're kind of, in a sense, when talking about education and about how we're pushing down DEI and LGBTQ sort of agendas, it's those bad apples that are trying to only make it seem like it's one narrative, Mm-hmm. But really, like, we can freely talk about liberal or conservative ideas and have a conversation about both, not just push it down and, have incorrect information like you were talking about with your class. It's important to be open-minded and also recognize your own bias or your biases when you're talking too.
Right.
And which I think we always do a great job. Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man.
And there's times where you get caught up in your own opinion and idea, but it's important to check it and think about those other perspectives, because that's how your perspective came to be, was from thinking like just like you're talking about. It's hard to do that, man. Like you were talking about with your dad affecting you, right? And my dad is a huge impact on me as well. And my dad might be one of the most liberal people I may have ever met. Wow. He is extremely liberal, and I think sometimes to an extent where he doesn't want to hear the other side, And that's something that, even though you may think that the other side is this, that, and this, but there is also a completely different half of the 350 million something people that live in the United States that think that way. And without carrying yourself or with living life, you have to be able to understand those people, because those are half the people that you see in your everyday life. Those are half the people you see in the grocery store. Those are half the people you're going to school.
There's a world
with.
beyond this all too.
Yeah.
This mess that politics kind of is. And I mean, I think a lot of people say they're moderates, and then they say they're moderates, and then they always vote red, or they say they're moderates and they always vote blue, and both ways. And you know,
I was the one who was at fault of that. I used to tell people that I was, I'm like down the middle, just because I didn't want to really join, like, immerse myself within that conflict. But I think it's important to kind of say what you believe, but also hear out other people and not just be a straight line or a straight ticket type of guy. I agree.
Yeah. And if you are a straight ticket guy, completely fine with that.
Yeah.
I think
but
that
straight ticket, not necessarily as in meaning like voting, but straight ticket as in like a candidate. You believe in every single policy from one candidate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, I wasn't into politics my whole life.
Yeah.
I would say I only got into it in a couple months ago. Maybe even this last month in particular. Like I don't have much experience, knowledge, historical knowledge, because I'm just starting to learn about this stuff and just starting to read about this stuff. So that being said, I can't put myself in a category just yet. And I don't think I'd want to, even though that being said, that I don't want to be the guy that's saying that I'm not in a category and then end up being in a category. I want to genuinely try to be objective of everything I hear. Hear a perspective, think about important. It. And it's hard. I'm not saying I'll be perfect, but I really want to try and, like, especially with this podcast, I'm definitely going to get people from both sides on, you know? And I'm ready to sit back and listen to them and really question, like, to what degree do they bring a strong point up? Is there a question there I can ask to dig deeper into that point? Is there a flaw I see there? Does my experience match with that? Where is this guy coming from? And I really want to try and understand each policy solely without the whole blue-red mess in the background of that policy. And then in the future elections, really try to make a decision based on, like, okay, which one outweighs the other in terms of that. And I hope I can achieve that. I don't know if it's possible, but even if you take the candidates out and the policies out, it just comes down to the fundamental ideology of how do you want to run this country.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And that's all.
It's really 10 or 15 topics that it's like you either think abortion should be accessible to everyone, or you think there should be more restrictions on it. You think that we should really cut down and close our border and clean that entire mess up, or continue to sort of experiment and still kind of take care of it, but not as tight. So that's really what I think people need to realize on how to vote. Like, what you need to do is just put down the 10 most important topics to you. Be like, okay, what do you believe in? And then what does that fall under? I mean, David Ramsey, he talks about that all the time. That's one thing that I've taken from him and watching a couple of his videos on YouTube, is that I took that home, and that makes a lot of sense, because that's what you're voting for, So, and you're also voting for what the candidate stands for and their sort of, and who they are, but more importantly, the sort of changes and legislation that will be passed.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are important, because I agree that we should have a charismatic leader. I do think that the leader, even if we ignore the policies, we should have a person who is identified as a good leader. But then you don't want to make sure you're not carried away by their charisma, because a lot of people are very charismatic and then they're not good action takers. So I think there's so many things you got to look at, like personality traits, quality traits, but even the individual policies. Like, I don't think it's an easy decision ever. And, there's a lot that goes into it, man.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about politics and education. Do we want to talk about actual fun stuff for a little bit?
Let's do it. This morning, I listened to Jimi Hendrix album from 1968. What's it called? Electric Ladyland?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
What an album, bro.
What are some, like, key components of it?
It's very guitar heavy.
Okay.
Because I think he's known as, like, is Jimi Hendrix is a band, right?
I can't tell you.
I don't want to say something false. I've literally listened to them for the first time today, so guys, don't. Everyone's gonna get mad if they're big rock fans.
I'm gonna set up the charger for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's at like 15, but
so he's actually an American guitarist and songwriter. So he's an individual person, and he goes crazy in electric guitar, man. So
he then has his friend or same.
Looks like you won't be able to hear you. What were we saying? Jimi Hendrix?
Yes.
So he's an individual person. He's an American guitarist and songwriter. So I don't know who he might get some other guys on for the drums and all. But
there's gonna be an old head watching this, just dogging us. Like,
I'm sorry,
Jimmy.
We were born in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Apologies,
Jimmy.
Who? Yeah, dude, it's a great album. I'm trying to like really expand my horizons here with music because I feel like this started for me in the last week. And there's two things that drove that. I think number one is you recommended me the Low End Theory,
Yeah.
Tribe Called Quest, because I've known about Tribe Called Quest. I've known that they've had such a huge impact in the 2000s rap and that whole category of music. And
on society as a whole.
yeah, dude, I've heard so many references to them. I've never gone into their music, so I'm glad I was able to listen to that and enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I think I told you my friend is going through the Apple's top 100 albums of all time, and he's gone from 100 to like 22, I think.
Wow.
So he's really kicking it.
I've seen YouTube videos where creators will have gone through the entire list or have gone through other lists from different media outlets, and it's really it's interesting because they kind of give you like a shorthand notes on it and whatnot and their thoughts, but you realize how, in my opinion, a great artist is a great artist regardless by your taste. Like, for example, I am not fond of pop at all, but Sade is probably one of the best.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Sade.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was
I
Sade.
pronounce it with an R a little bit, like Sade.
Yeah,
And that's because my aunt's name's Char, so we call her Sade.
I like it.
But Sade is how you pronounce it.
Sade. You already recommended me that album, and
Yeah.
I've listened to a song or two, but I've not gotten into it yet. I haven't found the right time.
Yeah, I've given this man so much music and probably being drowned in it. But Sade is there's something about music that can be really connected to anyone, and that's with themes and motifs of love, of human connection, of relationships, of trying to find your place in the world. When someone talks about that in any sort of genre, anyone can respect it, and anyone should respect it. And that's coming from country all the way to soul or jazz. When you're talking about things that can be expendable to really anything in life and not just specific like little niches, like drugs or like in the rap scene. Or
I don't get modern rap music.
no, I don't mind the references. I'm just saying when you have a broad sort of dialogue of what you're specifically talking about, such as A Tribe Called Quest. A Tribe Called Quest rapped anything about kind of talking about the implications of the N-word in music to talking about first time hooking up with their girl.
That's how rap's fun,
But the thing is those issues are important to the people, and those sort of motifs and sort of reoccurring trends are shown within like Sade and A Tribe Called Quest. If you really look at what they're talking about very simple yet complex subjects that anyone can relate to. And when it's across the entire spectrum of genres and music, like your Jimi Hendrix and your Bob Marleys and those type of icons that talk about anything and can be related to really anything, that's when you see there being icons created.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the content of music, I think that I do like rap music a lot. And I think that I like rap music that can rap about whatever it is, from like drugs to hooking up with girls, but also like tell a story through it, which I think can increase the art of it, because at least you're there with them hearing their story and people can relate to that. But what I don't get is like modern rap music. Like I love
mainstream.
I don't get it. And I say that I also used to listen to it like middle school, but I can't listen to it anymore. It's like I'll listen to this. I think Uzi just released an album. Everyone's talking about that. Or
awful.
It's like I haven't even listened to it.
Don't listen to it.
I like Playboy Cardi and
Yeah.
my friend. I'm sorry, my friend's probably gonna watch this clips, all this stuff. But he plays me like this UK rap stuff.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, it's cool.
The drill scene?
It's like pop.
Yeah.
It's like all this stuff. It's like, okay, it's cool. I'm glad you enjoy it, but I just don't get it, bro. It's like there's. I think I've only realized that in the last year, like increasing my broad view of the music that exists. Like this whole week, I've listened to Low End Theory, listened to Back in Black by AC/DC. That's an incredible album.
Yeah.
I'm missing that album.
I remember you telling me about it.
What an album, bro. I went on a walk the other day on Saturday night, I think, and I listened to The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Okay.
What an album, bro.
Yeah, Pink's good.
That's like it's a magical album in a way, and I know I'm hearing like, wow, music is this, and then I hear Uzi's like, yeah. I'm like, bro. I mean, like, they have
Playboy,
yeah, Playboy. It's like, okay, sure. Like, I've listened to them before. They make decent songs, but I can't compare that. When there's such a, I hope that I'm pretty hopeful, because I do think I've met a lot more people that appreciate that kind of music, that the rock music. And I think that culture will always be there.
What, rock?
Rock too, but
Or-
just like appreciating like real art in music,
And that's the same thing I'm referencing to, right? Like those sort of rock legends that we've been naming off, they kind of fall under that too, because they're talking about real world issues, real world things, not just girls and crime and different random sounds that are coming out of your mouth. Like,
Well, I think that the crime and that's so heavily in rap. I think it's still pretty cool, and I think you agree with that because
Yeah.
it at least represents like their story, because it was like with the growth of rap in the 80s 90s when it really started becoming popular. I think it started in the 70s probably, or 60s sometime then, but when it started really getting popular with like Dr. Dre and The Chronic, and now the
NWA,
2000s.
NWA, the true first gangster rap collective that hit mainstream.
Yeah, it was telling their story, and it's a story that needs to be heard about the systemic issues, and I think it's interesting, and it tells, as long as you can tell a great story through it, and anyone can relate to it or feel something.
Yeah.
Like I've told you about Be by Common. You've heard this album growing up. Like I relate to it so much. Like there's the emotion I can relate to. Like every song's a different emotion. The same way you talk about Sade. Like you can just feel the emotion. You don't have to read the lyrics, but even when you read the lyrics, it confirms that like that was the emotion I was referring to, and it's a cool part about music.
And I think authenticity too is another thing that can kind of capture us into these icons and what they're saying. Like how I was telling you, my favorite J. Cole song is a song about cheating. I've never been involved in that. Like, it's one of my favorite songs because it comes from a place of authenticity and a place of excellent use of vocab, use of syllables. We were talking about that the other day as well, and how syllables can be manipulated. Yeah. And just how an artist can create an authentic sort of product, and the listener tells the truth, right? Or the listener is the one to solidify that sort of authenticity by validating it. And that's how you see, I think, a lot of people staying in their respective genres for decades. Someone can stay in the game for a year or two, right? We saw Blueface in here for a year or two.
Forgot about him.
Yeah, exactly. You probably haven't thought about Blueface in 3 or 4 years, Yeah. So that's the one thing I really like about the music industry is that people can get to the top, but it's if they can stay there.
And that really it's determined by the fact that you make real art.
Yes. And that's what I still respect about the music industry, is that the true greats, or the people that have stayed there for decades and decades, are the people that are actually making or that are actually impacting the audience,
Yeah, it moves people.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can feel a whole set of emotions that they didn't know they could feel.
Yeah.
Or reminded of it.
Yeah.
That's so cool, dude. But yeah, I think that there's just so much music out there. Is also a cool part about it, that I would say that I've listened to mostly rap until this last year, and now I've just taken this other step. But like, what other steps are there that I haven't taken yet? And like, you mentioned that there's certain genres you just don't like, and I understand that. And same with me, I'm pretty limited in my 2 little bubbles here.
Yeah.
But it's exciting that I'm so excited that I wanted to keep trying new albums, like listening to new albums, and just experience it. And with time, just keep experiencing more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the word recycle, and I think I referred to it in the wrong way, because the industry recycles in a way where it determines, like, if you make stuff that moves people, you will rise to the top, you'll stay at the top.
Yeah.
It also recycles in a way that it reuses, And it, like, Can I Kick It has been reused so many times by A Tribe Called Quest. But every time you hear it, like, you remember that. But then, like, they twist and turn it in a way where it makes it even better each time. And
it's up to their own interpretation. Well, rap really started out as taking rock instrumentals, and then guys just started rapping on it. Like, oh man, I'm gonna forget his name, but there's a rapper in New York late 70s, and they did this whole news little segment on it, and he was the first person that was ever truly rapping, and it was over rock beats.
Wow.
And
do you remember the name or no?
No, but it's I saw it on have you ever seen like the decades special on CNN where they go over the 70s and the 80s and the 90s? It's like a summary of it's basically just summarizes the past. It was on there. If we do a little bit of research, we can definitely find it. But it was first started with rock instrumentals. So I think, and so that's taking someone else's music and interpreting it own, and then it ends up making another genre. So I think that's what rap stems from, is taking someone's thing and interpreting it, or taking someone's idea, music, beat. I mean, look at Kanye. Kanye's seen as the GOAT. Every beat he's taken is from someone who has made something, but then he has his own spin on it.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's beautiful. Like I love soul sample rap. That's that genre of music, that niche.
It's such a staple.
Whether they listen to like Heart of the City or any song by Kanye uses so many soul samples, and obviously it's been around for a while. But even if a lot of the songs you might not know are produced by Kanye, I've learned that recently, that a lot of songs I didn't know like were produced by Kanye. But he's done incredible stuff with that, driving that as like a narrative, I guess, in music. But another cool thing I was thinking about was I remember this memory that popped in my head. I was walking down from Mojo to Chipotle, and I was in bulk mindset mode, and I'm like, oh, dinner closed at 8 today. It's a Friday. I wasn't doing anything that night, so I'm like, okay, let's go to Chipotle, get a bowl, get my calories in, come back. Yeah. And I remember I'm walking. There's like one straight road you can go down. You just go, like, you work toward the CCTC, and you go straight down that road, turn right, straight down past the Dentist Street building. Yep. And it was pretty warm back then. It was like September, probably October. It was nice outside. Someone was outside with speakers, and he was playing some song that everyone knows. Something like, maybe I can't remember the exact name, but just imagine like Bob Marley or something like that. Okay. He's playing a song everyone knows. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of walking by, and it's a nice vibe, and I'm feeling this positive emotion. I'm thinking about this song, and memories popped in my head of like other times I've listened to that song. Like, I was just remembering there's this furniture class that I was in with some of my friends, and the guy that was the teacher there, Senior Middleton, is a great guy, and he always played Bob Marley on the speakers. And this memories are popping in my head, and then I come back to the real world and I look around, and downtown Ann Arbor is filled with people everywhere. Yeah, and they're walking. Some people are going out for dinner, some people are whatever they're frolicking about, and everyone's listening to that same song, and everyone can feel the same emotion at the same time. And there's how many people in this world? 8 billion people in this world. 9 billion, I don't know where we're at right now. And you can play a song anywhere in the world and people can relate to it and feel it. And it's such a way it connects people that I felt in that moment that it kind of changed the way I look at music. It's like you can play a song that everyone's heard and everyone has their own memories associated with it, same emotions associated with it. And I think that's really special about music.
Yeah. I mean, you see music not just as a recreational activity that people just do in their free time, right? It's also something that's a part of worship. Like music is such an important part of everyone's life and the emotions that come from it as well. Do you have a specific song that when you think of that song, you don't even think of the song at first. You think of a certain emotion or thought or event tied to it. That's something that is extremely interesting to me, and that I ask people that all the time that I get to know. And like when you think of this song, it's not even like, oh yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is that wordplay. No, it's this specific moment in my life. 2 examples. Okay.
I'll check these first.
Okay.
I'm gonna get my charger for my phone.
Okay.
Shoot my question.
Now you can think about it.
I don't know the answer though.
I think I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. Go. Just while
I've been sitting. Oh yeah,
that's good for you. Could you swipe me in this one?
Oh yeah, you can swipe in.
Yeah. Well, my thing doesn't work.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, who you have at work?
Yeah, the sun's come out. That's pretty nice. It was. I think the best weather is when the sun comes out after it rains. It's like it's
100%.
wet everywhere, and the clouds are still kind of there.
And
so
an occasional rainbow.
yeah, that's beautiful. Anyways, freshman year.
Oh yes, the memory. This is what we're on. I'm excited.
Freshman year was a pretty rough time.
Okay.
I would say probably my roughest year.
Okay.
Cause yeah, I was coming off of COVID. I hadn't learned about health stuff yet. I hadn't learned about like anything with like self-respect, self-love. I hadn't like done most of that yet. Most of my happiness in middle school came from like stimulation and just like friends that were like play video games with. I wasn't after COVID. I kind of became extremely antisocial. You're spending all day indoors. I wouldn't even go outside to see the sun. Like I'd just be inside all day.
Yeah.
Wasting my time doing typical things that people who waste their time do. And I didn't realize the impact that would have on me like socially, where it drastically boosted my social anxiety and even just like lifestyle as a whole. Like I didn't have anything to put on my name that like I was proud about in myself. So I kind of went the whole year just like hating who I was, and it was a pretty rough year. And I had like pretty much no friends coming out of that year. But I think something inside of me was this like spirit that I can never be satisfied in a shitty condition, where it's like I want better and I can find better. So that realization came to me freshman spring, and it kind of came to me because for the first time I saw a group of people that I kind of really liked, and I immediately told myself like my goal is to secure that friend group.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it at the time. I tried, but I was like so awkward and so fearful and so like weird that I couldn't interact with them or anything, and I wasn't part of that friend group. The whole year I've been looking for like people I can call friends, and like I guess there's two parts of it. One, obviously that I had personal problems with myself. I also couldn't find anyone who I like really looked at. I'm like, yeah, those people would be cool people to have friends as. But I remember that spring term I saw that in like the last week or two, and like I hung out on a little bit, and then I kind of told myself in my mind that I'm gonna come back next year. I wasn't boarding that freshman year. I'm gonna board next year. I'm gonna make sure that I do what it takes. And I also started lifting this summer, which I kind of gets helped as well. But I remember that sophomore fall was such a jump from the lifestyle I had in my freshman year, because all of a sudden I started lifting, I started like liking myself more, I started doing things that made me like myself more, I started building a little bit of self-respect. Like I remember as soon as I got there sophomore year, almost like it took me a week, and I actually like felt like I was friends with them. Like one of the people in that group was one door down from me, and I started interacting with him, and he kind of liked me a little bit, and we started becoming friends with each other. And then he kind of
boarding, correct?
Yeah, boarding school, yeah. And he kind of became this gateway into that friend group, and I was like, damn, I did that. And like once have I ever in my life told myself I want to do something and did it like that in such a way, and I was so proud of it. And I started liking myself more. Like I started playing sports. I was in cross country at the time. It was the same year I started doing wrestling, and I remember that fall term was so magical because for the first time in my life, A, I achieved something I said I wanted to achieve, but B, because the whole lifestyle there was so much fun. Whether it's like, you see your friends all day, you're going to classes with them, you're living with your friends, you're like 16 years old living with your friends,
playing sports with your friends,
going cross country practice, coming back lifting after cross country practice because you just started falling in love with the gym, and you're like, I don't give a fuck if I'm sore, I'm gonna go lift. And it was such a fun time. And right at the same time, October 15th or something, October 16th or something, I discovered for the first time this playlist that I found off of TikTok.
Okay.
Filled with soul sample rap songs.
Yeah.
And with the amazing positive emotions I was feeling at the time because I just built a success in my life. Yeah. Plus the time I heard it at the same time, my brain created a connection with them, and I fell in love with this music.
So that's what time. Yeah. So that time of you trying to create your own self-worth and self-belonging is also when arguably one of the best genres of all time was introduced to your life.
I was listening to The Blueprint by Jay-Z. I was listening to B by Common. And there's so many artists in there. Jay Dilla, Ninth Wonder. And I just fell in love with it. And I just kept listening to it all day, every day. I listened to Madlib and Drive In, Blue and Exile, who I showed you. I listened to Blue the Heavens for the first time.
Did you ever get in the MF Doom?
Oh, I loved MF Doom.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Operation Doomsday is like my second most streamed album of all time.
Yeah, great.
I love that album. And he's great. I got into all that stuff that time frame, and I haven't gotten bored of it since. I just love it. It's more than anything. And now whenever I hear like Faithful by Common, I'm right back there in sophomore year. We're just having a good time. You know, and nothing will mimic that energy because it's the first time I ever achieved it. And it always brings me back. I just remember lifting with my friends sophomore year when I'm like so skinny, and I remember hitting one plate on bench for the first time after a year of lifting. It took a long time, and I'm almost at 2 plates right there. I hit 220 this morning. I don't know if I told you.
Dude,
I'm like 220 is like every single plate on it.
No, when I warm up, and I go 210. No, I go 215, 220. 220 looks so odd. It's like having cylinders on the side of your.
Yeah, bro, it's so funny.
Or not
though.
cylinders, like cones.
Yeah, like cones. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Wrong shape.
But yeah, that's the first instance I can think of, and forever Soul Sample will be connected with that beautiful time in my life. The second example,
bro.
and I want to ask you about yours as well, but
Okay.
I guess you asked me, I'll just finish the second part of the story because I think this is also a cool one. During wrestling practices, our wrestling coach and whoever's on the aux, rock music was a big thing in wrestling. I think they're associated in some way, and I never liked it at first. I was indifferent to it. I didn't say I didn't reject it. I was indifferent to it. They played rock music on the speakers, or whatever. They had the playlist going, and sophomore year didn't care too much. Junior year didn't care too much. Senior year didn't care too much. Senior year wrestling season ends, and this is like the last time I ever wrestled. Since, I've wrestled in between, but really like as a part of a team like that. And then as soon as wrestling season ended, I fell in love with rock music. And it's something to do with the brain that's funny and confusing and weird. But every time I listen to Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, I'm back in the wrestling room doing sprints.
Yeah.
Every time I listen to Bomb Track is such an iconic song because every Saturday usually on Saturdays we have big tournaments. The last practice before a big tournament on Friday, we don't do much wrestling, but we do a lot of cardio. So it's a lot of cardio. You're running around the room the whole time. You're doing sprints and hit, and you cool down. You go heavy again the whole time. And right at the end, we usually end practice with like jog, sprint, in a loop, right? And he won't tell you when practice is about to be over, but he'll play that one song. And the last song he'll play, it's called Bomb Track, like Rage Against the Machine. You heard that song?
Who's it by?
Rage Against the Machine. You probably heard it. Let me play it.
I probably have heard of it.
I'm gonna play it I don't care if you get copyrighted.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm not making any money yet. Bomb Track. You've heard this song.
It gives me time to think about my answers. Well.
My speakers kind of being weird. 1 second. Let's see. Sound MacBook. Hello. Okay, that's still working. I don't want to destroy the mic. I think my speakers are being weird.
You could show me afterwards.
Oh, input. Shit. I think I put the wrong one. Okay, there we go. That's working. Mic's working. Output.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this. So. This might need to be a part of the intro of the podcast.
Oh, I'm down.
I like how it progresses.
So this is the last song he'll always play.
That's when you knew it was like, oh my god, they got it.
It's the last 3-minute push though, so it's actually kind of ass. But yeah, anyways, he'll turn the lights off after like halfway through the song, and you're still sprinting in the lights off, and that song always brings me back there. So
Yeah.
I would say a lot of those rock songs do bring me back to wrestling, like Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, something like that. But yeah, a lot of songs bring me back, and yeah, I think it's very intelligent that you bring that up. That there's something about music that brings us back to the emotion more than the song itself, and I think that's very true. And yeah, I'm curious about your life, man. You got anything?
All right, we're gonna go childhood first, and I do not know who this song is by, but it's You Can't Always Get What You Want by, I do not know the artist's name, but this was a constant, I don't even know if that's the name of the song, but I just remember that was a part of the chorus, and it was played whenever me and my, You Can't Always Get What
Rolling
You Want.
Stones?
No, I don't think so. No. Maybe put it with a lyric.
Let me put in Genius.
Yes.
Yeah, keep going.
I could probably sing the entire song, just don't know who it's by,
Key of Life?
or it might be.
Yeah.
But if you try sometimes.
You missed the bus and rain.
Yeah, I think it's that one.
Okay.
Yep. But okay, so that was because the big thing, when I grew up, when I was about 3 or 4, I was very defiant and wanted to be involved in everything. Like anything that was going on, my job was to be there.
How old were you?
Like ever since I started walking, I was like this.
Wow.
That was my sort of demeanor. And I would say that was a constant song that was played by my parents just to kind of diminish that, because at the end of the day, we don't have control in everything, you know, and we need to learn to let go of certain things that we just can't control, right? Like, so we were talking about that earlier, and that song kind of taught me that lesson in a way, that there's like a majority in things in life that are thrown at us. It's thrown at us and we don't have any control over it, but we have a control of our own actions and how we respond to it. And so that song over time kind of taught me that lesson, and I think it's just extremely important, because if you think you can control everything, you don't have the correct idea. You know, there's so many things that you can't control, and if you get fixated on it too, it'll eat you alive. Which that's what happened to the 3 and 4-year-old version of me, right? I would cry, I was upset, like, why can't I stay up past 7:30 when we have a bunch of guests over? Like
7:30 p.m.
Yeah, you know, bedtime and whatnot.
That's a crazy bedtime.
Yeah, I know. And so yeah, that's that. Growing up, even like sometimes, like ironically, that song will play in my head if something like in that same sort of theme kind of happens in my life.
Wow.
But that, I would say that song's kind of like a children's song in a way too, but it also I think stemmed from a actual release song, and then they're like, okay, we can teach kids that you can't always get what you want. So I would say that for sure.
That's cool, because I've heard people say that songs bring back to memories, songs bring back to emotions. This
And
one brought you to a lesson.
Yeah,
So I've never heard about that before.
And it's also like a children's song, but also kind of stemmed from a real song that I think came out in the 80s, but I don't know. I think in the 80s. Second song, and this song I would say has to do with love, and it's Like I Want You by Giveon.
Ooh, Giveon.
Yes, Giveon. In my opinion, no one does it better than Giveon. R&B, the R&B love genre.
I think I know him from the one time he was featured in the Drake song. It was like Too Early, baby. Is that Giveon?
Giveon is on.
You know what it is every time I visit.
Sing it a little more.
Dirty City. She blowing me kisses. Is that Giveon?
These kisses. Oh.
You know the song, right?
Yeah. It's on.
That's Giveon.
Yeah,
It's on Dark Lane.
Lyrics.
It's off of Dark Lane demo tapes.
Show tonight. Gonna see you at the show.
Yeah, I was right. That was Giveon. The Chicago freestyle.
Chicago, yes. That song's a classic.
I don't know. I'm surprised that I knew that was
That's
Giveon.
a good album.
Oh, I like
by
that
the
album.
way.
Yeah, Drake's nice.
Great songs on there.
I like Drake.
Florida with Love. Not You Too with Chris Brown. That's a good song. But Like I Want You, it has a tremendous music video. One of the best music videos in my opinion. And it just kind of talks about the dynamics of love and how you want someone, but yet at the same time, you know the best thing for a relationship can be to leave the relationship. There's a lot of points, and I think that's been a theme that that's been very prominent in my life, especially with coming out of a relationship, out of high school, and coming to college, you could say single, and without having that sort of companion, it's sort of humbling in a way, right? Because you could still desire and want someone in your life, yet they're not in it, because you know the best thing right now is to not be in their life. And I think that song has been, and I started listening to that song when I was like in 8th grade, freshman year, even before I knew what love was. And then it kind of stayed with me as life occurred, where it was kind of the opposite with the can't always get what you want song, right? Like that taught me the lesson, but I kept the Like I Want You around because I love the song. It's a great track. Oh my gosh, the audio, it's such a good song. But I would say what kind of resonates.
Does it bring
with
like
me,
in memories, or does it really bring like the theme?
It brings back almost like, I won't say a memory, but kind of a past but also current state of thought.
Hmm.
You know, trying to acknowledge that the best thing to do within a relationship is to leave it alone and to not do anything is something
Yeah.
so hard to comprehend when you care about someone so much. And
What do you mean by not do anything?
like leaving a relationship
Oh,
or not
ending it?
furthering to it to develop or evolve within it. And I think that sometimes is the best decision, right? I mean, time holds all truth. And I think that's an important thing that I kind of learned from that song, even though it isn't necessarily directly tied to a memory. But dude, the first time, that was the first music video. I was freshman year, I think, 8th grade or freshman year. First music video I ever cried to, and I didn't even know what love was. Like it was like,
You gotta watch it together.
bro, dude, it's
I got you.
actually like, okay, it's we can watch it together,
Yeah.
but it's just like it's so. I think it depicts kind of that desire of caring about someone, yet knowing the best thing
What was it called?
is
Like,
to let them go.
Like I Want You.
Yeah. By Giveon.
Yeah.
That's such a hard issue.
Free to play with a
Sorry. Little FanDuel Sportsnet.
Oh, nice.
It's well put together.
Dude. It's a piece of art.
So you like this chill R&B kind of vibe?
Yes. Yeah. If anyone's looking to get into the R&B sort of sector, the first artist you should listen to is Giveon, and then the Take Time album, which has about 8 or 9 songs on it. They're all classics. You have Beach that's on there, a couple other songs that are, oh my gosh, just like I said, you could not know what love is, and Giveon could teach you what it is. Until it all makes sense. And that's another theme too, right? Like relationships in life evolves over time. And we always have this preconceived notion that we want something to be like it was in the past.
That's a tough one.
But you can't, right? Because it's evolved and changed. And so that's when...
That's life in general too.
I know, right?
I've heard this song. I think I can't remember if I've heard this song.
It's fairly popular, I would say so, yeah. I would say it's in between that line of mainstream that is just absolutely put down your throat, but then the mainstream that's known by that sort of, you know, R&B audience.
There's some mainstream songs that are pretty good though. Like I'm not
Oh,
against
for
all-
sure. Yeah, I'm not saying like how good a song is
Yeah,
indicated
yeah.
off of that, but just like it's mainstream, but not
Well,
across
I bring
that
that up
line
because
of
like
radio.
I feel like typically there's a culture of like mainstream bad, but there are some pretty good. Like I think in the
Oh,
rock
yeah.
sector, like a lot of the mainstream songs are good.
Rock's different than
Like,
rap
yeah,
and pop.
even like Green
and-
Day, like some of their mainstream songs, like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, or like Linkin Park's mainstream songs.
Yeah.
Like Numb. Even I like their mainstream songs actually, so
Yeah.
it's nice.
But I can't make us sing.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, so that's a song that definitely resonates with me throughout high school, you know, and I think that sort of theme of relationships, right, and how they evolve and how they change over time, and that can be applied to really anything in life about wanting the desire to go back to a certain time, yet you're not in that time anymore. You can't go back. We don't have time machines yet, you know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever will?
See, if you would ask Caveman Jackson 10,000 years ago that we would have we'd have these things flying in the sky and that we can control them and carry 500 people on them,
Yeah.
they'd be like,
Jackson,
what's going on?
who are you?
You know, so who knows where science and evolution and just time will take us.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say no, but who knows?
I would say that
Definitely won't be in our time.
maybe. I mean, what if you told someone 30 years ago that in 2024 someone can control a computer with their mind?
Yeah.
It's happening right now. You know about that, right?
Yeah.
That's
You're
crazy.
talking about what are you talking
Neuralink.
about specifically?
Neuralink.
Neuralink. That's
It's insane.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have believed it even like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the work they're doing is incredible, and it's crazy how it's working on. I think they have like multiple test participants now. It's wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. I think the thing with scientific progress is that the thing we're certain that's gonna happen is probably not gonna happen, and the thing we have no idea is gonna happen is probably not probably gonna happen.
Yeah.
Which is like the fun part about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like AI. I mean, AI has been around for like really Google and certain search engines in a sense are AI.
60s, I think, was the first beginning.
Yeah, but when AI really like on a or international level with kind of how it's perceived kind of shot up, I think we never really could think that AI could do things that it does now.
Yeah,
you know?
with generative AI. Especially.
Yeah.
That's like the big jump that happened in the last 4 years. Generative AI.
Yeah.
Where it's like it can generate things out of nothing, which I still think is fascinating, bro. It's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm like curious about what it's gonna become.
Yeah.
Kind of
and how
excited.
the process evolves, right? And how sort of, you know, because a lot of it is that the AI kind of takes all these different you know, pieces of work and they kind of give an average of it, right? Like they're taking this aspect, that aspect. As you continue to develop those features, like who knows what AI spits out? Maybe it's a manifesto about a revolt, you know? Have you heard about it was a AI research lab in California
Recently?
and they about a couple years back,
Okay.
and they had like 2 live AIs and they like put them in like a quote room together, but it was like,
What do you mean? Are these on the computer? AI?
yeah, like in a computer, and they like interacted together.
Yeah.
And they observed it, and they had to shut it down.
What kind of AI
They had to
was
shut it
this?
down after 20 minutes.
What kind of AI? Was this generative AI?
Yeah.
Do you know?
But
Okay.
like it was like they were like conversational AIs.
Okay, got
But they
it.
only interacted with humans, and so what they decided to do is they hooked up they created some sort of environment in which they could interact with each other,
Yeah.
and they were doing like apparently insane things.
Like what?
Like they were exploring concepts that haven't even been discovered yet by like humans, and so they shut it down.
Do you have any examples you remember?
No,
or no?
I'm trying to remember specifically, but it was a part of some. I think it was a part of like a government kind of exploration or some sort of study.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read about that if I can find it. Yeah.
But if you think about that though, if 2 AIs or multiple AIs are having discussions and feedback about all the knowledge that they possess, what kind of discoveries can we make?
It's
You know,
insane.
because like it's imagine putting all the brainiacs in the world into one sort of AI, and then we have 20 of those, and they're all having conversations and critiquing and having podcasts and they could have
Have
a
you seen the AI
10-hour podcast in 1 second because
That's insane.
yeah, and now they're bouncing all these ideas off each other, and now we know how to change. Now we know how to create time machines. So, yeah, it scares me, but I also think it's gonna be pretty cool because then we'll have some new forms of evolution and change within our society.
They started the AI podcast stuff already? I saw that it's
AI podcast.
I was on YouTube and something came up on my homepage. It was like Joe Rogan AI podcast, where basically it's actually insane how cool it was because they will get Joe Rogan. They built a Joe Rogan AI that speaks like Joe Rogan and basically reads all of his episodes and takes all that data so they can create a chatbot that speaks like Joe Rogan, ask questions like Joe Rogan. And they'll get like a guest on, like Steve Jobs, who's never been on Joe Rogan, but they'll put them in a room together, the 2 chatbots, the chatbot that's mimicking Steve Jobs and the chatbot that's mimicking Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And it's actually insane how cool it is because like dude, I kind of want to show this.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, this shit's crazy. I think this AI, generative AI, cool stuff, whatever. But like mimicking other humans, that's where it gets kind of scary. It's like, look how real this looks, bro. All right, so, yeah, this one right here.
Why is everyone spiraling over YouTube getting ad blocker? Just use time. It's a free voice engine that's actually made by one of the fastest today.
Oh my gosh.
The Joe Rogan AI Experience.
Starting my day, Joe Rogan podcast by night. folks. Welcome to the Joe Rogan AI Experience, episode number 7. Now, before we get started, I gotta make this clear.
Look how real that looks.
Everything you're about to hear, see, and experience in this episode, none of it's real. This entire thing was cooked up by AI.
Can you believe that,
Cooked
bro?
up by
These
AI.
are all done with 11 labs. The script, that's all ChatGPT doing its thing. And the images, yeah, those are from Midjourney. So, yeah, nothing here is actually me, Steve Jobs, or anybody else you think you might hear today. It's all just tech doing
Like, you can tell it's AI,
And
but like,
listen, we're doing
within like
this
10, 20 years,
for
you probably
for
couldn't.
entertainment. So don't go
That's
out
so
there
real,
and
bro.
use this stuff for anything sketchy or
Wow, if Joe Rogan was talking about some normal stuff, I'd be like, oh, it's Joe Rogan. Like, because he's talking, like, saying it's not. But if he was
Yeah.
actually, like, talking about something random, I'd be
believe it.
like, yeah, so would
believe
I.
it, bro.
Check them out. Dive
I wanna show you the
in,
actual episode,
observe
so.
them yourself. But remember.
Well, I want to see a little bit of the episode.
All right, let's get into it.
So then,
And we're live.
so let's put pictures.
Fuck, I'm not even sure.
Well,
how
pictures,
this is
okay.
possible,
But still.
We've got Steve Jobs in the studio.
The conversation is crazy, bro.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
It's exactly the same.
Be here.
It's absolutely wild to have you here. You've shaped so much of how we interact
Nobody wrote
with
that.
technology.
Well, thank you, Joe.
What do you think about the state of technology in 2024?
Well, Joe, it's pretty remarkable how far we've come. When we started
And,
our
you know, if you look at a real Joe Rogan, you could probably tell the difference. It's probably gonna be more formal interview style. But
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this part's cool. Like, okay, anyone can generate a script. However, I thought the two things that were cool to me was that A, they can generate a script that mimics someone. So, like, the question type they're asking or the response type they're responding with. But the second part was, like, when it was actually speaking in the beginning. That shit was scary, bro.
Yeah. Are we talking about the Joe Rogan when he was giving the
The
intro?
intro, that was scary,
and it was
bro.
actually like he was alive. You could see he was breathing. You could see the shadow
That's so
of
real.
his chin. Like,
Yeah.
it's spooky.
Dude, if you, like, messed with it a little bit and made him say something else, I feel like some people could actually believe that's him.
Yeah.
And the real question is, what are the implications of that?
Yeah. No, they're vast, extremely vast. You know, it'd be interesting to see if we see some sort of experiments in a way, or seeing some. You know, we start to have AI used, but trying to see what or how people sort of think of it, right? Or how if they really think it's AI or not. Like, that's what's really scary, is that we can't tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how it will be used, and for greater good or greater evil.
I feel like when I read something, I can almost tell if it's AI or not.
Yeah.
I've gotten good at that
Or if
now.
it's chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely tell when it's chat now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm reading some of my friend, like, I'm in a class where we do a discussion on Canvas, and so you can see everyone's response. I'm like, dude, you did not write that.
Yeah.
You did not write that. You wish you wrote that. You know, it's like, that's the one thing that makes me upset. It's like, I pride myself on not writing with chat.
Mm-hmm.
The most, to the highest extent I use it, is brainstorming.
Idea generation.
Just for kind of creating the best roadmap possible. And I also use Grammarly to help with my grammar,
That's
of course. But I don't know. Chat is
Like,
like,
just copy pasting off
you
of it.
you can
yeah.
tell when it's like, when someone, you can just tell. And it's just like, yeah, you're gonna get an A, but like, at what cost? You know, like, you're not really speaking what's actually on your mind. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if you ask anyone, they'll probably respond by saying that, oh, it's efficiency. Like, I can care less about this class, and we just get through with it. Which I could see that to an extent, as long
Yeah.
as it's not every
Depends on
single
the
class
class.
you're doing for efficiency.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
If it's not part of your major, and you know, like, you're
fair enough. I think
Yeah.
we'll leave people judgment to that. Hopefully, they can make good judgment. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that the real question is that we can both tell if it's GPT or not, and most people can. Will it always be that way? Like, I can see that video and tell you that's not the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah.
Will it always be that way?
And will people
Like,
will people clarify that it's AI?
That I'm hoping for the good of humanity. But then again, if we're saying governments, you can justify crazy things
Yeah.
in the name of power. And have you seen it happen before? It's
Hey, what?
just like people in power justifying things that typically would not be, like, seem as correct on a smaller scale. But for the sake of national security, we can always justify things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how long will it take, do you think, till it's almost indistinguishable? Because we're not there yet.
I give a decade, right? I mean, how much AI maybe 10 years ago was you would kind of have to be within the niche of it. Now my grandma knows the phrase AI, it's used everywhere. When you have concepts that are worldwide and everyone knows and it's being talked about, that's when you sort of see the progression in which it evolves. So because more people are more intrigued, they want to be involved, and it's a free, it's a open enterprise, right? I mean, to an extent, like there already has been some regulations that have rolled out about it, specifically used within politics. But
are there regulations on that?
Well, it's kind of more or less an agreement, like within legislation, that people don't use it. It's kind of like a rule, but yet, can you follow it?
What do they say specifically you can't use it for, or like the agreement at least?
So the agreement is that you can't use it for like I think it's like political ads.
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of like
Is that the end of the world if it do though?
I would say so, because it's not real, right?
Yeah.
And if it's like, yeah, I would kind of see it as disingenuous, right? Because if you're a political figure, right, and you are running against someone, you don't want to.
People know that you just like.
Yeah, you don't want to show. You don't want to. I think that's kind of against ethics in a sense.
Fair enough, I agree.
Because that's not who you're running against. Now, if they did something bad and you throw down the ad, I have no problem.
Yeah.
But if you're showing a video of Donald Trump, like, I don't know, doing something outrageous in which he didn't do, or Biden, grabbing the head of a baby, like
falling off his chair.
like he only did that 3 times in real life. We don't need a. I'm joking. But
I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it definitely should be regulated.
Interesting. Yeah. But then again, like it could be regulated with the national level. Well, reaching a global level would be kind of scary because I don't know. I feel like the moon landing is an interesting one. I don't know if I'm gonna get into that. It's kind of a conspiracy. What do you think about the moon landing? Have you read about it a lot, or
About
the conspiracy theory behind the moon landing?
Yeah, about how it's set up, and it was shot in a
People, a lot of people
shot
claim
in
that
Hollywood.
people
Yeah.
claim that it wasn't real,
Yeah,
which I've read about it. I can't claim anything because I wasn't there.
yeah,
But it's very suspicious when you read about it. But the whole point is that, okay, we can debate whether it was real or not, but if it wasn't real, we can think about it as the U.S. justifying that, even though it may not be good for the general ethics wise, but at a time in war during the Cold War, they were able to justify that. And if you want to debate about whether it's fake or not, we can do that. But also, the reason I bring that point up is because if it was, it basically shows that, okay, we all agree we should have regulations. We all agree that ethics and all this. But when it comes to a World War III situation or some war with another country or powers, they can do some crazy stuff without realizing how crazy it is till after the fact, So.
yeah. And I think it's just another tool of manipulation, right? Like, I can see AI being used for, of course, the good, but then it's also, you have your bad side, and how deep the regulations will come about how deep will the bad side go, into what implications it has, and if it threatens national security or just how we do things as a country or as a world. I can definitely see it being regulated and put in a dungeon, in a sense. You put it away, and yes, we can play with it, evolve it, but not at a mainstream level.
Are you? Oh, sorry, you gonna say something?
No, you go ahead. I wasn't gonna say anything else.
Okay. Are you scared of the doomsday narrative of AI taking over the world? Do you think that'll ever happen, or do you think it's too extreme?
I think there's definitely a possibility. I mean, we just don't know, right? I think there's a possibility, and with AI being as strong as it is, and with it continuing to gain knowledge and development, and as technology continues to evolve as well, I mean, who knows? Like, we can't. Like I was just talking about, caveman, there's an airplane in the air, like they'd be freaking out. That's just how time evolves.
You see that movie, that Netflix show about the airplane? It's like 716, something like that.
Is that like a fictional show, but it's like based on a true story?
It was about the one that the airplane disappears for 10 years.
Yeah, and then came back or something.
Yeah. But for them, it was like an incident.
Yeah. Was it based on a real?
I don't think so.
Okay, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a crazy movie. But yeah, there was like those like cavemen that get the airplane up in that scene, I think. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Okay.
But yeah. I don't know why I brought that up. It's very useful.
I know. I've seen that show before, so
That's
I know
cool.
what you're talking about.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean that's true. It really shows progress of humanity in a cool way. I mean, I personally am not worried because I think what satisfies me is that every time there's a new technological development and you read like the current state of mind at the time, if you read the books at the time, you read like the way people think at the time, they're all say the same thing, that this new technology will take over the world and destroy everything, and it never does. And I think there's an evolutionary part of our brain that is always trying to protect us, and it's a lot easier to find problems in your life than things are good in life by naturally if you didn't make any additional effort. Like, it's a lot easier if I told you that make a list of like 10 problems in your life. For most people, majority of people, it's easier to do that than to write 10 things you're grateful for, honestly.
Yeah.
But
No,
you
for
can
sure.
obviously work on that and make better at that. But it's just our brain. Our brain wants us. If we were like all so jolly in the woods and the wolf comes and eats us, we're too jolly, we'll die. Right? You kind of have to be
Yeah.
worried about the wolf coming. So, which I get it, but I think the problem with that is that every time there's something that can threaten the future, we always are more scared of it than we should be. I have faith that there are intelligent people out there who develop these things, and I have more faith in them because I've actually watched podcasts with them and I realize they're actually humans. That's something I always think about. Oh, the people who develop those technologies, those robots, but they're all humans and they all care.
Yeah.
And they all are driven by the same things, and they could all sit here and do a podcast and have a whole conversation not about it and how much they care about whatever they do. And because of that, I do have faith. I think that we're a little bit too scared, and I try to stay optimistic.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It's just we don't. It's really the future is the unknown. Like when we can estimate how the future will be, but no one could predict that in 2020 we're gonna have a global pandemic. You know, so
Out of nowhere, man.
yeah. So the future is unknown, but I do think the future is promising, and I think that that we're making efforts to also create a future that everyone can live and thrive in. So I'm optimistic in that way.
That's good, man. How do you think pandemic affected you?
I think the pandemic. Okay, so the pandemic had deeper ties for me than just the pandemic happening. So pandemic hit end of 8th grade year, right? Yeah, because we're in the same grade, and about end of 6th grade, beginning 7th grade, my grandpa was diagnosed with cancer, and he ended up passing in
Sorry, end of sixth grade?
he ended up passing end of 8th grade year, May 2020. So right at the height of COVID.
Yeah, first 2 months.
And he passed May 5th.
Did he have COVID?
My birthday was the 9th, May 9th. And so that was I was really, like, my grandpa was he lived about 5 minutes from me. So I grew up with him in my life. There were summers where, there's summers in middle school where I helped him with his business. He was a HVAC, but also had his own business with plumbing and AC, and he was a great guy and had his own. He's a very successful guy that loved his family. Was a great person. Was a great role model in my life, and that time was extremely rough afterwards. But also, that's when I was introduced to lifting. And that's why it's still such a big outlet for me to this day, because, you know, lifting allows you to put all those different sort of pressures in unknown, even though we try our best to, like you said, think about the positives, there are things that just take a control of our body, right? Like things that we wish that weren't the way it is. And I think working out and exercise helps with that tremendously. And I think during that time, that's what kind of got me through it in a sense. And I think I reflected on it a lot once COVID started easing out and real life came back. I reflected on it a lot and reflected on, you know, I can't dread on my grandpa not being here. I should do things, in spite of him, you know, I should do things for him. And that's another thing that kind of comes up is like, that's when I changed my number in football too. And I changed to 5 my senior year, but also 5 because that's what day he passed. And then I was 40 during my junior year, which was his number in high school. So I think operating with a sort of chip and a fire is something that is really unstoppable when you put your mind to it and when you stay consistent and when you truly have something that motivates you, because you're not doing it for yourself, right? You're not doing it for your own interests. You're doing it for the person that was there for you that you didn't really appreciate during that time. And that was another thing too, that then when I was talking about nagging, like, you know, having that sort of voice in your head, during that time in 8th grade, it was the first time I ever met a girl, and I hung out with this girl a lot as my grandpa was dying. And so to realize all of a sudden it got really bad, and now I have 2 weeks with him and he's already shriveled up and not in a great state and is barely talking, like that it hits you, dude. That shit hits you. And I think during that time, with also all the different pressures of COVID and the isolation, it allowed me to almost, as time progressed and as I became a sophomore and became a junior, it was almost like I was blooming, you know, because I wasn't receiving sunlight, you know, physically and kind of symbolically, you know. You gotta feed your soul, you know, and operate in a way that has meaning. And if you don't, then what are you really doing? And your brain and your body and your self-conscious knows that, you know. And I think that kind of hits back to what we were talking about with the short content and kind of how you were talking about how you didn't feel good about yourself freshman year. You like, it's all connected. Like at the end of the day, you have a conscience and you know what's right and wrong. Even if you brainwash yourself, like, you still know at the end of the day, deep back into your yeah, you know that, you know what's right and wrong and what you're operating with. And that's when that kind of switch for me. And like I said, with education being around, it was able to help me and get me to the place I was. So I mean, I love my grandpa and I miss him dearly, but I also don't think if those events didn't happen, I don't think I would be the person who I was today. And I'm almost thankful in a way that I reflected on that and then just tread on it. But there was a time, there's about a year where I was like in the dumps, dude. Like, it kind of similar to your freshman year, right? Like, trying to figure things out, especially with being in high school freshman year. And then also you just came from a year of isolation. It's difficult, but also, hey, we all got through it, you know? So
it's better.
Yeah.
It seems that because of the circumstances right around the time of his death in May 2020, because you were starting to hang out with this girl a little bit, you kind of created this guilt circuit in your brain.
It was guilt, yeah,
right?
100% it was.
And I'm curious about the feeling of guilt, because it's a weird one with people that are not alive anymore. Like, I've talked to my dad about this and his relationship with his dad.
Dude, it's different.
And I'm curious about, okay, did it emerge immediately? What was the first emotional reaction? When did the guilt come? Did the guilt come immediately to go away, then come back? And does it still live with you? Or what was the relationship with the guilt? What did it feel like?
I could confidently say that I'm over it now and it doesn't eat me anymore. But I would say probably till I realized that me thinking it as guilt wasn't improving anything, and that instead I should operate in the sense of which I should operate for him instead of operating dreading or missing him, is kind of where I mean, it's really just shifting your mindset, right? We're good. But in a sense, I think I just really shifted how I viewed it. Like, I still miss him and I still dread. I could stand here and still regret, like, hanging out with this girl that has no current implications on my life. I haven't talked to her since freshman year. Like, I could be like, dang, like, I wish I didn't do that. But it happened, you know? Right. And you have to live with that. And you have to realize that you were, innocent in a way. And that, you're just doing it with your best judgment. And as long as you know that you did it with your best judgment, you should be able to eventually move on and realize that it wasn't your fault, And I think that's kind of what happened to me, especially after I matured. Right. And also as I started, giving more effort and putting more time into sort of athletic and academic discipline, it almost canceled it out in a sense, because I knew I was giving more and doing more because of him. So that's kind of what it turned into.
Interesting, man. You talked about the importance of living with a sense of purpose and reason.
Yeah.
So would you say your purpose and reason was your grandfather, or was there some, like, what was the purpose and reason that drove you? Yeah.
Yeah, because his last words he told me was, he's very sick at home, April. That winter was the first time I ever played travel basketball, and he came to damn near all my games. And the last things he said to me was, make sure no matter what, you play your hardest on the court. And basically saying everything's about effort, right? And it is. What you put in is what you get out. And so I had to think about those words for a year while not doing anything. Yeah, 13. I thought I just met the love of my life, And about at the start of my freshman year is when me and her ended. And so that freshman year, I sat with that guilt, right? Like, he watched me play sports, was there for me. And during some of his dying times, there could have been times or weekends where I could have spent with him, but I spent with this girl. So to kind of hit back on your cue.
What was my cue?
Or kind of your statement, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that over time I think it really just has to do with maturity, right? And that in order to grow and change, you have to let go at some point. Or your question was on
pandemic and then guilt.
No, after that you touched on something.
Did I?
It might be. I think it was guilt. You're just kind of talking about the guilt. But dude, the feeling of guilt, like true guilt, and I've never felt anything like that, was like I've never felt the feeling like that. Yeah.
That's a scary feeling, man.
Yeah, but you get through it, especially when you have loving people around you that are also going through the same thing. I mean, that was my mom's. So it was actually my mom's. It was actually my mom's stepdad. My mom lost her dad when she was 4 in a gun accident. Ooh. Yeah, and so
you know that story.
What?
You know that story?
Yeah.
You want to share? Or?
I mean, I know. He was cleaning a gun and was shot because while he was cleaning it. Yeah, and he didn't know it was. Yeah, it was an accident. Oh wow. Him and his friend were and he ended up.
That's really rough.
I don't know if it was a head wound. I don't know what it was, but yeah. So his mom. So my mom, my step grandpa, you could say. We'll call my mom's stepdad. Well, I'll just call him Rich. That's what his name was. But he was grandpa to me, and he came into my mom's life as when she was like 5 or 6, and was just. I mean, he's a great guy. What's also interesting is that he was a tremendous guy. Great guy, but also had a lot of he was also brought up in a time where he had a lot of racist undertones. And my dad is Greek, but he's a dark complex Greek, almost to where a good amount of kids think that he's black or Middle Eastern. And when he works at his job, a lot of kids come up to him and he's like, "Mr. L, are you black?" Some of the black kids would go up to him and say that. And he'd be like, "No, I'm Greek." But he's also darker complected in that way. And I think in a sense, when my dad married my mom, my grandpa kind of understood that, what you hear on news and what you hear from your friends who you don't really know and experience different types of people. And now you have these assumptions, especially when you go on television, like we were talking about earlier, and you're only seeing these different type of people in these different types of situations, and they're not true 3D people. I think that my dad and me and my sister as well, I mean, we're both white, but also we're also of a little more dark complexity. We're not extremely white in a sense. So I think that was that was something that my grandpa was able to evolve from and was able to kind of look past his sort of, I'll call it inherited ignorance, or perception of minorities. So, and me and my dad talk about that a good amount, and my mom as well, because that was kind of the one thing about my grandpa. My grandpa was an insanely loving person that would help anyone, but yet, like, for example, like in Marcellus, town of 2,000 people, when the 2 gas stations were bought up by, quote, towel heads,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, there's a lot of talk about it and how they're invading our land. Like, like that's not okay. But yet that's also like the sort of environment you're brought up in rural Michigan. So, yeah, that was definitely a time, but it was something that I was able to grow out of, and that's made me who I am.
I've seen that you've grown so much in that time period.
Yeah.
Just through lifting, and I know that you're supposed to trying to walk on the football team here.
Yeah.
It didn't go as planned, unfortunately, but
Yeah,
dude.
shout out to NCAA, eliminating walk-ons forever, but yeah,
It's rough timing.
No, it's cool because now it's
Yeah.
made me realize that it's given me time to focus on what I want to do professionally, and it's kind of given me time to reflect on how I want to leave an impact. So, which I think really should come down to, I think that should really come down to everyone's choice for what they want to, for after getting a degree or whatever they decide to do after high school. It should just come down to, in what sort of way do you want to make an impact?
Right. I'm excited for what the impact will be, man. Education wise, just like the health wise of people around you. You seem like I've really enjoyed getting to know you.
No,
I think I remember the first time we met because we just happened to keep running into each other.
Yeah.
At Southcore and at Mojo, and then kind of went down a little bit. But then when I saw you in the morning gym, like a month ago, we started seeing each other a lot more often. And, had a lot of deep conversations, and we finally got the chance to do the podcast, man.
Yeah.
And,
it's been a joy, and I mean it's so easy talking to you too as well. Like you
can talk about anything.
No, and that's the thing too. And we're able to bounce off ideas and also critique our own ideas at the same time, which is the best type of conversation because we're never right. We can go through these 3 hours right here and be like, fact check me on that. All right, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I wasn't fully seeing where I was coming from. But we need to acknowledge that because we're not perfect. We're human.
It's easy to talk to you about things because you're also pretty open-minded and you don't get like emotional about it. You're just very objective about it. And it's very easy to kind of. I really enjoyed this conversation from all the standpoints. And dude, you had a proposition.
I like this sort of phrase. I mean, it's very much 18th, 19th century, but die on the stand. That's how politics was first originated, right? The political figures would get on the stand and they would yell out what they believe, and people would either object or sometimes would even riot. So what would you stand, or what would you die on the stand for? It can be anything that
not just music this time.
Not music. I asked him previously what he would die on the stand for album wise. I think it was album.
I said B by Common.
Yeah. But this can be anything. This can be a concept. This could be a verse from the Bible. This could be anything. Anything.
I think, for me, in this current stage of my life, what I die on the stand for is health. I'll love to talk hours about ultra processed food on my podcast.
Yeah.
I care very much so about eating the cleanest and healthiest diet at the top of the pyramid of what I deem as health. It starts there. It starts at eating extremely clean food. I pretty much, for 90% of what I eat, is chicken, rice, eggs, potatoes, and I should eat more vegetables and fruits. That's all I eat, and I try my best. And nothing against eating a slice of pizza every now and then. I probably had exactly 2 slices of pizza in Michigan so far. Once, and they're both a month and a half apart. Yeah. It's okay to have every now and then, enjoy it. But I strive for extremely clean diet, clean lifestyle, because I think there's a lot of fulfillment you can drive from there in the present, but also the results you get down the road. Like I only drink water. I don't drink anything besides water. I think there's a beauty in clean, healthy lifestyle, and it starts with your diet, but then I would argue that there's so many pillars to health, because I think your brain health is another one. Your social health is another one. Your fitness, active, like aerobic endurance is another one. There's so many, and I think we can get so nuanced in this. I can film a million podcasts about each topic here and go hours
And
about
that's
it. But
subtopic,
yeah.
mental health, how do women,
But for
just
me,
tons of
not
things.
understand. I'll just start with health, start with diet. How about you?
So I can't say Sade this time, which is kind of disappointing.
That's what you
But
said last time. We're talking about music.
I would say probably the First Amendment. You know, like we really take for granted the ability for us to film a podcast and like say whatever we want, like. And I mean, of course, to a certain extent, like you can't say I want to kill this person; they're that awful, to a certain extent. But we are really allowed to collaborate and to create concepts and thoughts without really any limitation, and that is such a privilege to have. Like, if we go to the biggest country in the world, China, like there is extreme regulations on their quote First Amendment, like the way they can talk, the way they can speak, the way they can really express themselves. And I think we take that for granted in a sense. We forget that other countries aren't there yet. We forget that other countries, there's people that have these thoughts but have to regulate and hide them for their own safety. So I'd probably just say the First Amendment. Like it's like everything we do is damn near dedicated off of it. And now I would just say I'd say it as the right to have open thought and opinion. Like I think it's very important, because once you sort of narrow mind people into this is the only thing you can talk about, you can't critique me, we're not creating a better society. So
it's never worked in the past. There's been many attempts to. I think even like Plato's Republic was kind of built on censorship, was kind of a part of that.
Yeah, and it really causes stagnation, right? Because now you're limiting resources and you're limiting way of thoughts, and that's how things are discovered, right?
Yeah.
We embrace the unknown, and we embrace other thoughts and ideas coming in order to make the best society that we know of or have thought of.
I think that First Amendment, those guys were smart, man. They came up with something.
They're like, this has got to be first.
Yeah, and I'm sure I know they've have reference that.
I don't know. I didn't see who it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, they've obviously taken ideas from many civilizations in the past. But putting that constitution together, man, there's definitely some cool ideas in there. And I think that when you limit thought in the singular way, I think that's what happens when you combine religion and the state, which I'm a big advocate of religion and people who want to pursue religion. I think it's great. I think when we push religion onto people and then we make it generalized and universal and that this is the way we think and act, it just stagnates your society and you can't evolve. I think the biggest reason why in the last 300, 400 years we've seen so much advancement over our 300,000 years of history is because we one day shifted an ideological thing from the Bible or the religious book, wherever you are in the world, does not have all the answers and we're actually ignorant. And I think if you thought that way before, they'd almost think, oh, you're the devil, you're bad, like all the answers are in this book. But the second humans shifted to thinking that we are ignorant, we don't know, then science was born. Because science is built on the concept of we don't actually know, but we were going to find out.
Yeah.
And we're always going to find out.
We're going to create the best sort of results based off of what we find,
And then...
Which is an art in itself.
It's amazing. And downstream of that, you have everyone. I think it goes. Then we have the First Amendment come in, and everyone can share their ideas, and people can critique them and debate amongst themselves. But there's no like big daddy figure coming and telling you, "I don't like the sound of that. I'm gonna take that away."
And that's why. And this is something I don't think we've discussed, and that's why I think the separation of church and state is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important because if you are to believe in something that is not proven true, as in it's not in front of you and there's not true, I mean, that's what faith is, right? Your faith is that you believe that this is what is a part of life, and that's what religion is. When you don't have, or when you don't truly know that then causes for you to kind of go down a rabbit hole in a sense. So yeah, I mean, it's really expendable in a lot of different ways too. So
yeah. Well, Jackson, it was a solid about 2.5 hours to come down
Yeah.
to. But yeah, dude, a lot of fun. I'm down to this again.
No, 100%.
I could talk to you for
I
hours,
honestly
bro.
say like we could definitely revisit this like after winter break, and once we get a full semester in. And I think having
We'll have more to talk
I
about.
think talking or reflecting about our semester would be a really good topic
And
too.
we've already filmed so many mini podcasts in the dining hall.
Oh my gosh, we might as well just mic up next time we eat.
I'll bring them with me.
Yep.
Everyone's staring at Mojo, camera set up in the corners.
Like, what are these guys doing? Just like what happened?
Just chatting. Dude, I'm pretty sure that one time we were just like in South Quad that one time. I'm pretty sure there was a girl like behind us who like finished eating like an hour
Oh,
ago.
I
and I swear
remember
she was just sitting there like she's pretending to be on her phone. I feel like she listened to your whole conversation.
100%. She was
It's a
like,
respect, man. It's
Yeah.
a good conversation.
she's probably enlightened.
Oh yeah. Well, Jackson, Lascarides. That good pronunciation?
Lascaritas.
Lascarides.
Yeah, it was pretty close. Yeah.
Cool, man. I remember the one time I asked you to like get the cards out of this wallet.
Yeah.
I really liked
Oh
that
my
idea,
gosh.
and then the same day I filmed the podcast, and I asked my guests to do it. And it kind of became a tradition. We've had 2 guests so far try to get this out. The first one got it in 51 seconds. The second one got it in 49. But I
You
unfortunately
time 'em.
cannot ask you to do it because you already figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, stay tuned for future podcasts and people trying to beat that challenge. But,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
for the record, Jackson got it in. He couldn't get it.
No, I was like, I give up. Like, just show me, please. There's to a point where I started shaking it. I started like trying to grab like
Yeah.
certain parts of it, and I
Yeah.
think there's a point where I like almost ripped the thread too.
Oh really?
Yeah. Oh, I probably should have told you.
It's fine to me.
No,
They were good.
you're probably fine.
Second thing I started doing is asking people how we can upgrade the studio, but we already talked about that. So
Yeah,
we gotta get the big board in the
I
back.
feel like this
big
is a
tapestry.
good setup, and yeah, I mean, making the best what we can with our U of M facilities. I mean, a possible idea is, I know there's some pretty new. There's some. Have you been to the technology services in the MLB? They have a bunch of podcast rooms kind of set up.
I gotta
so
check
that
this
would be
out.
so that'd be a idea. But I also like the makeshift idea. Like we are in a dorm right
It's
now.
fun.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's like- It's like a podcast in a suitcase. if I think about it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're doing it wherever. So
Literally in a
I kind of-
suitcase.
I like that authenticity in a sense, you
Yeah.
know, like wherever you go, it's wherever it's
comes
gonna
with
be.
me,
It doesn't
you know?
have to be in this cool setup office, you know.
Yeah.
And that should maybe be something that you kind of attach yourself within your PR and your.
I've thought about that
Yeah.
because my initial idea was like podcast in a suitcase. This podcast is an adventure through life.
Yeah.
You know, like before I got here, like I filmed every podcast in a different place. You know, like I was first on my high school campus, which is a beautiful campus, and there's so many cool spots on campus. We would go around, explore around campus, film here, film here, film here, and then the podcast kind of comes with me over breaks wherever I go. I'm in over here now. We're gonna take a podcast there. Summer break, I take the podcast with me. I was driving around my friends' houses, which are all around Jersey, and then kind of exploring. Like one time we popped out of the beach and started filming there.
Yeah, you
Another
showed me
time
that
I'm at his
video.
crib over here, and it's like fun. Like now that I'm in Michigan, I've kind of made this like the podcast space, which is like. But then again, like when I'm out of Michigan, wherever I go next, it'll kind of come with me. And,
Yeah.
You know, I like that idea. It's like the podcast in a suitcase adventure podcast. So,
Yeah.
You know.
And almost that could be something I could see a suitcase going right behind that logo right there, like almost it being like an icon or symbolic of the show and what it stands for.
I like it.
Yeah, and I love everything you're doing with it.
Thank you,
Dude,
bro.
I think it's really dope, and I think
Appreciate
it'll
it,
be
man.
even doper to look at when if you get to a point where you stop doing it and you can reflect on on really a sort of historic archive you'll have, you know, of not only your life but also the ideas that have been talked about and that consume us.
Yeah, and the goal is to do one conversation a week for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it's cool if I can achieve that. I
Yeah.
haven't missed a week so far, so hopefully
Yeah.
we never do.
That's what 52 a year.
Yeah, but we sometimes double it up. So
52.
I've done.
Okay.
This is number 70, and we started last October, so I've done decent extra ones. But
Okay.
at the minimum, one a
Yeah.
week. Yeah. So
With our college load at Michigan.
yeah, we'll see. Next term will be a little difficult to do 2 a week, so
Yeah.
probably back to 1 a week. But I like the die in the stand stuff, so I think I'm gonna start using that more often.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start asking guests at the end.
No.
What would you die in the stand for?
I think it's a good way of kind of seeing where your guest lies, you know, like
What do they
if you're-
care about really?
Yeah, what are you dying on the stand for?
The tradition
And-
that Jackson started.
yeah, and I think you got to have a serious one too, and you got to have a goofy one too.
music,
You got to have you got to have be something outrageous. Like
yeah.
oh, this certain lyric or this, or you know, like
I would die
a
on the stand
tripod
for.
or like something silly, you know, or
I would
a
die on the
cable
stand.
cable machine.
I was gonna say that. I would die on the stand for lying leg curls. That's
Yeah.
what I would die on the stand for.
I would die on the stand for cheap protein.
Hey, that's the Mojo Daddy right there.
Yep, that's very true.
All right, we gotta close this out at some point. I'm starving, but peace.
Yeah, let's
we can just keep going, even if you don't want to.
What do you mean?
I like we're gonna close it so many times, and we just keep talking.
Oh yeah.
All right, peace.
I wish I had my phone. I could play some Tribe right now for you guys, but you have to go listen yourself.
Thank you for tuning in to my episode. If you enjoyed that episode, I guarantee that you'll love this episode right here. The best way to support the channel is by hitting the subscribe button. It'll help me to upgrade the channel, get better guests, better production, and overall more episodes for you. And by hitting the subscribe button, it'll ensure that you'll never miss a new release. While you're at it, hit the like button, leave a comment, and share the link with your best friend. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.